Welcome everyone to Mark Out of 10, the wrestling podcast where we discuss, debate and argue the finer points in wrestling, but no one really cares. We have a few interesting points to discuss from our listeners and followers from social media, the most up-to-date news in the wrestling industry, and we also have a little thing of our top 10 Intercontinental Champions. First up, I am your Mark Shields and my co-host, our dark match Don Juan, our pipe bomb phenomenon, the housewife's favourite heel, Hoxie. How are we doing, Hoxie?
I'm very good, mate. I'm very, very good. I'm really, really excited to do this week. We've just had a little chat before we press go, press record.
Not about the list.
Not about the list. We never talk about the lists. Hand on heart, Scouts honour, all that shit. We never talk about the list, but I'm really looking forward to it. And there's a lot of stuff to go through this week. There's a lot of news. There's a lot of fun stuff to discuss. But I'm really looking forward to having a chat about some of the feedback that we got from last week's show and previous shows and stuff on the old socials. People are
absolutely
talking. People are getting involved. I love it. I love getting messages. I love seeing the comments. I love seeing people's takes on stuff. And they're really, really good takes as well, by the way, which we will discuss shortly. But I'm excited. What say you, Shields? How are you? How's your week been, mate?
Yeah.
What are you saying?
It's been really busy. It's been really busy. So it's like, in terms of, we do a lot of streaming and stuff, but this week I've had zero time to do anything. I've actually had to work for a living, which is a pain in the tits. But yeah, no, I've been really looking. I know, yeah, it's a real first world problems, right? But yeah, no, I'm all right. I've been really looking forward to this, though. It sounds really cliche, but it is like it's a highlight of my week, which shows the life of Lead Hoxie. You know,
No.
Spent a few hours with you, my friend. Spent a few hours with you talking about the good old wrestling, and yeah, it's good. And you're absolutely right. We tout our socials a lot, and we're going to continue to do that because you just don't learn until you actually start commenting on a lot more stuff. Then we're going to continue touting it. But yeah, we had a few comments that from our YouTube channel, from other social medias. You've had messages, like you said, Hoxie, and we're going to go back a few episodes just now. And the first one we're going to talk about is the crowd reactions one. Okay. And this is from Pac Sam. So I'm not going to read the entire comment, but he brought up something that when I've mentioned it to you, it was a holy shit moment. How did we forget about that? Now, when we talk about crowd reactions, we went for the pop.
We went for the pop.
That's what it was all about. It was,
Yep.
It was the
not
moment
necessarily in our defense.
Oh my God.
That's what we think of, isn't it? It's the big, you know what I mean? Yeah.
But Mr. Pac Sam, who we've read out a couple of comments and emails from, Undertaker losing his streak at Mania was a crowd reaction. It's the quintessential anti-reaction where it stunned the crowd into silence, right? That's an amazing shout from Sam.
Such a great shout. Big shout out to Pac Sam as well. If you like a bit of a FIFA guy as well, if you like some FIFA content, check out Pac Sam on YouTube. He's a great FIFA content guy. But in terms of like a wrestling fan, he's loving life. But that take a shout is amazing. You messaged me, didn't you? You were like, "Oh my God, what the fuck?" And I was sat in silence probably for about a minute, just comprehending it. It's perfect, isn't it? As you say, it's
like when I read them.
Yeah,
it's the anti-reaction. It's when I read it, I was like that guy in the crowd with just the wide eyes, like that. You know, it was that sort of moment. It was just.
Yeah.
But it's true though, and we spoke about this in our Royal Fumble, like in season 1 of Mark Out of 10. Again, go back and listen to our back catalogue, and we talked about how Taker should never have like lost his streak, and to the day I die, I'll always maintain that he should never have lost his streak. But that reaction from the crowd, that was for every reaction we had with like Stone Cold Steve Austin, and it was the visceral reaction.
Yeah,
it was a true reaction from the crowd at WrestleMania as well, right? It was a case of. It was like, holy shit, was that supposed to happen? It's like, what's going on? Incredible. Absolutely incredible.
I would say as well, you have like big pops. You will have people who will boo and you will have people who will cheer. There's probably the old percentage change or whatever. I would say with that Taker reaction, it was probably 99.5% people were just like, what? You know what I mean? No one went, yay, Lesnar! Like, there might have been the odd one or two who like reacted to Lesnar winning. But yeah, everybody, the vast majority of people would have been just like, what the fuck? And
I think even the people that did sort of yay when Lesnar won, it wasn't because Lesnar won, it was because they thought Taker was going to kick out, and they're like, yes, he didn't beat him. It's like, shit.
Oh shit.
Oh. Oh.
Honestly,
So,
Pac Sam,
yeah.
a big fucking Moo 10 pat on the back for that shout. That's an amazing shout, mate. Great stuff. The anti-reaction.
Yeah,
I love
absolutely.
it. I love that.
The anti-reaction.
It's a t-shirt right there.
Absolutely. So then, another one. Yeah, we've got so many. Speaking of t-shirts, I'm repping. You know, we talked about this prick Dante that last week, and
He's such a jeb end, absolute bell end.
He is, yeah. You know, some might say this podcast is brought to you for courtesy of the Dante World Order. You know, who knows? But check out streamerware.co.uk. Yes, another thing we got through. You got this through message, and it was also on our YouTube channel. It was to do with the top 10 feuds in wrestling, and again, it's not one that, when you hear it, you go, "Holy shit! Yeah, that's
of course."
Why didn't we think about that? And the feud was the Monday Night Wars. You know, that came in from Alan, and I've got a little snippet of what he said. The Monday Night Wars. If there were no Monday Night Wars, there would be no Screwjob. Don't think WWE are as edgy. I don't think we get Austin McMahon. I think it's probably the most important feud. Not necessarily a feud in the traditional sense, but I think you could argue it. And to be honest, something, he's 100% right.
Yep.
100% right.
Yeah. The points that he made there are sort of the argument, really. I don't think it needs an argument when you think about it. As a wrestling fan or anybody who understands wrestling in the tiniest bit or the history of wrestling, you just have to think about it. One of the greatest feuds of all time, WCW versus WWE. Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, so once again, we went down that route of wrestler versus wrestler or whatever, and it's like as soon as someone says something like that, it's like, fuck me. Of course. I wish I was as clever enough and as cold enough to fucking come up with that, but there we go. Another Moo 10
the thing
back for fair play.
Absolutely. Well played, would Al. It's one of the you bastard. No, but this is the point of Mark out of 10, right? It's about creating those conversations. It might not be between just me and you, but it's about the people that listen. It's like we want someone to go out and go, "Oh, did you hear Hoxie say that X was the top 10 feud? What about they didn't mention this?" And that's what it's all about. And the fact you guys are responding to us is really appreciated.
Cool, I love it. I love it.
It is
just
cool.
People finding time out of their day to listen to this and think about it, and then take time to just respond, even if it's just a like on a video or a comment on a fucking TikTok or whatever. It's just it's cool, man. It's cool. We had tactical, the guys in his office at work were all talking about it and stuff. It's one of the OG listeners of the show. He was everybody in their office was having conversations and debates about stuff, some of the early lessons and early shows and that. And that's crazy. That's crazy to me. It blows my little monkey brain. It really does. But yeah,
it's like my sister, she listens to the podcast as well, and she was she listens to it, and then she messages me and goes, "Fuck off with this being your number one. There's no chance." No, fuck you. It's okay.
It's great. It's great.
Anyway, moving swiftly on. You mentioned TikTok there. We're starting to get comments on our TikToks now, which is incredible. So thank you to everybody that has followed us on TikTok. We'll get to where you do that very, very shortly. But Blake McDonald 48 put a comment in something when we were talking about Sting's last match. He went back and listened to one of those TikToks, and what he's just said is Sting's last move in wrestling could be the BTE trigger of the Young Bucks, Hoxie. One of the greatest of all times, one of the greatest to ever lace up a pair of boots. His final move or his final thing in wrestling could be him taking the BTE trigger from Matt and Nick Jackson. What do you think?
It's no, it can't be. It can't be. Please, wrestling gods and everybody, please don't let that be a thing. All my days, I couldn't handle it. Don't think I can handle it. Thing is, Sting's the kind of guy. I think Sting
horror.
now, like I'm not saying he doesn't care, but I think Sting is just sort of he's like NFLTG. There's no fucks left to give anymore, so he's just like whatever.
Yeah.
It's the last fucking thing, whatever. I think for that audience, they will cream their little pantaloons over it for the rest of their life. But for the general wrestling fan and sort of old wrestling fan and whatever, they won't like it at all. And I just think it'd be horrible. It'd be really horrible. But you can see it happening, right? You can see it happening. You really can. And I don't
The
like
thing
that.
is, I don't think my tiny brain has comprehended it, though. That's the thing. It's like when I've thought about Sting's last match, we've resigned ourselves to it's going to be against the Young Bucks in a tag team match, which is absolutely fine, right? That's by the by. But somewhere in the back of my head, I've always thought Darby Allin's going to be the guy that gets pinned. But if this is Sting's last match, he's not going to be the one that's going to be standing on the edge for the final moment, right? So until Blake... So Blake, you've hurt my soul by putting this comment on our TikTok because I didn't even think about it. I appreciate it, but why, man? Why? So yeah, it's... We're going to talk more about Sting's...
You shut the fuck up right now. Shut your dirty hole, man.
We're going to talk... We've talked a lot about Sting's last match over the last few weeks, but there is something more that we're going to talk about during the news sections. But before we get onto the news in wrestling at the moment, if you have an opinion on anything we talk about on this particular podcast, or if you've listened to anything in the past in our back catalogue on Spotify or on Apple or on YouTube or any of your favourite podcast platforms, please let us know. Your opinion, whether you disagree, or just general comments, that's absolutely fine. You could email us at wrestlemark10@gmail.com, tweet us at mark_out of10, check us out on YouTube, on Instagram and on TikTok, all at mark out of 10. Most importantly, make sure you like the podcast and also share it with a friend and get them involved in everything Mark out of 10. And whenever you do your favourite wrestling thing on Twitter or any of the socials, make sure you use hashtag #Moo10. That's what we're going to try and get as a common theme in everything that we're going to do now. I think that's sufficient plugging of our socials, Hoxie.
Just any reaction, anything makes a difference, right? It genuinely, any tiny little thing that you guys do makes a huge difference. We kept our powder dry on this last week. We didn't really speak about it. The Apple Podcasts list last week, we got up to number 45 in the wrestling podcast section for the UK, which to me, I have like massive imposter syndrome about it. I thought it was bullshit, but all of the things point to that, right? So all of your guys' listens and stuff to this is massively appreciated. It's absolutely insane and incredible that we got there. But the only way we're going to grow this is by doing those socials and pushing those socials and stuff. And any little reaction, any like, any share, any comment, whatever, makes a massive difference to the algorithm, this magic force that we deal with every day that's floating around. But yeah, honestly, it's amazing, guys. We're like a couple of months in and we're having some great fun and we're doing some amazing stuff and we just want to keep it going and you guys are helping and it's amazing. Thank you very much. Cool.
It's just
cool as fun.
It's just a pair of pricks getting together talking about wrestling and the fact
Anybody
that, like,
this,
you know,
right?
we did. So the previous week, like Hawk said, we peaked at number 45 in the UK for wrestling. Now, I'll give you a bit of context. That's higher than Colt Cabana's podcast. That's higher than a version of Jim Cornette's podcast. So Jim posts on two different platforms. So we were higher than one of his platforms. We were higher than WWE's The Bump.
Yep.
You know, it was so.
What? How is that even?
I mean, we peaked, and obviously, you know, it's peaks and troughs. We go up and down, but you know, the fact that we're hitting that is incredible. And yeah, it's all down to you guys that listen and do push it out. We are getting better with our own socials in terms of I'm trying to fire things out daily, especially during the week. Try and get into a little routine of it. But yes, so thank you on behalf of me and Hawks. It is greatly appreciated. But anyways, that's enough of the.
This is still new to us, right? This is still new to us, so we are growing, we are learning, and all that sort of stuff. So things will change. Shields has disappeared. He's back again. So there we go. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, I
There
don't know
you
what the
go.
fuck happened there. There we go. It's recording.
So that's Scottish internet.
Start again, Hawksy, just in case. Fuck, don't know what happened there. We're good. We're good.
It's mad. Yeah, it's crazy to me. Just we're still learning. We're still new to this stuff. We're still getting to grips with it. We're getting to grips with the format of the show and all that sort of stuff. So there's a lot more to go at. We have got lots and lots of top tens in the pipeline. A huge amount of lists that we can go through, and obviously wrestling is always changing and it's always doing stuff. So we've always got shit to talk about. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
100%. And like you say,
the news.
The wrestling is always changing, and as ever, we're going to do a bit of the news. We'll go through the three major promotions: WWE, TNA, and AEW before we get started into the list. We'll probably put AEW in between the lists. We don't have a fumble this week, which is fine. We want to change it up a little bit, so it's not the same format every week. But let's start with WWE. So there's a couple of things we're going to talk about, Hawksy. So the first one that you actually made me aware of about 20 minutes before we came online.
So do you want to
start that off?
News.
It's breaking news.
So Austin Theory was on in Australia. Obviously, they've got the Elimination Chamber thing, premium live event coming up in Australia, and Austin Theory was on a TV show. Having a discussion with guys, and basically the reporter is a guy called Anthony DeCeglia. Sorry, Anthony, if I've butchered, but you fucking deserve it. He's basically called. It's another one of these situations. It's another conversation that we had quite recently with Grayson Waller. He's turned around and said that wrestling was fake. So there's some footage going around. There's some video footage going around of somebody filming it on their phone. It's on Twitter. It's literally really, really new, like probably the last sort of today, really. But he's just ended up calling him out on his bullshit once again and walking out of the interview. So I'll do some quotes. DeCeglia told Theory that WWE wrestlers were not actually hitting each other. The Western Australian's report of the altercation claimed DeCeglia told Theory wrestling was not as hard as Australian rules football or rugby league. Theory ultimately felt disrespected and told DeCeglia, quote, "Just because you're in charge of some shit around here, man, doesn't mean you can talk to me like this." DeCeglia told Theory he didn't mean to offend him, but the 26-year-old wasn't having any of it. "You're saying that what I do is easy, and you're in front of all your people in here talking about my job is easy. You couldn't walk a damn day in my shoes." And then Theory squared up to him and threatened to get physical. So there is what I would normally say is like, "Oh, this is a work," but the fact that it's footage from somebody's mobile phone, like in the background, sort of hiding away, like looking over some computers, would tell me that it's probably not. If it turns out to be a work, then okay. But if usually if it's a work, it's like in front of like normal TV cameras and stuff. You know what I mean? Like they're filming it on the show or they're reporting it or something. But the fact that it is in front of a mobile phone, someone hiding away, and the guy is he's genuinely doing a poo. I would say that it's a shoot. And fair play to Austin Theory. Going back to the Grayson Waller conversation we had recently, Theory should have just stuck one on him and been done with it. All the WWE lawyers would have made it go away. Theory would have been a hero, and he probably would have had the WWE belt around his waist by the time WrestleMania comes, because he's a fucking beast. But like, I don't want to talk too much about this because I've spoke about this before. As a wrestler, it is massively, massively disrespectful and frustrating when we keep having these same conversations. And this is from time immemorial, from whenever wrestling has been a thing, professional wrestling has been a thing. We've had people who discuss this and treat wrestling like this and do all this bullshit. Fair play to him in a sanitized world that has been WWE for a long time, to have two guys, young lads. I mean, Grayson Waller wasn't grown up in the business. Austin Theory is a little bit different. He started
No.
quite young and broke in a different way. But just to have these two guys get there and stick up for them, for their livelihood, for the boys, to stick up for what wrestling is. Fair play. I like Austin Theory anyway. I really rate this guy. I think he's amazing. He's phenomenal talent. Got a great future in the business, and the fact that he sort of stepped up to it and put someone in their place, it's incredible, absolutely incredible. If it turns out to be a work, I'll be fuming, but if it is a shoot, fair play to him. Fair play to him.
Yeah. To be fair, if it's a work, then fair play. You know, they've done well. But yeah, Austin Theory, very talented individual. I reckon he's going to be the sort of next Drew McIntyre in terms of he'll probably need to leave, because I think they fucked him a little bit. I don't know. I just there's something quite missing. So I think he could potentially do a Drew McIntyre fuck off for a few years, smash it on the indies, and then come back. Yeah. But yeah, it's interesting. You know, it's a story that will come up. It's like, again, peaks and troughs, right? In terms of this sort of shit doesn't happen all the time, but then when it does, it's usually like 2 or 3 in a row. And you know, I think it's always going to happen in wrestling. Okay, and I think we spoke about it with the Grayson Waller thing. It all stems from that time where, you know, wrestling was at the carnivals, you know, and everybody thinks it's a bit corny, a bit hokey, but you know, it's a completely different thing. It's like it's a legitimate multi-billion-dollar business. So it's like, have a little bit more respect. And you know, Austin Theory should have just lamped the fucker, to be perfectly honest. But it is what it is. It's 2024 now, Hawksy.
The fucking taste out of his mouth. So that would have been good fun to see.
Absolutely. Slap the herpes off his lips.
It's 2024. You get in trouble for stuff like that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so moving on to probably a bit more sinister story connected to the WWE. It was released that former WWE star Paul Roma, so Paul Roma was in a tag team called the Young Stallions in 80s, early 90s, from 1984 to 1991, I believe that's when he was in WWF at the time. And again, there's more severe allegations against company executives. So him and Jim Powers, as I say, were the Young Stallions, and Roma says they were propositioned by someone in the company. So propositioned, similar to sort of Janelle Grant and Vince McMahon sort of saga at the moment. Roma stated that, let me just get the quote, Roma stated that other WWE executives leveraged the careers of performers in exchange for sex. If Roma's allegations are true, it's a pattern of behaviour that's also reflected in Janelle Grant's lawsuit. Hawksy, it just seems like you think they're getting over the hump. Now, they'll never go over it until the lawsuit's finalised, but every other day there's like more allegations. How bad is it going to get for WWE? Like, how dark and twisted does it get, do you think?
I think this is... I think we've said this before when we were talking about it. This is genuinely the tip of the iceberg. There'll be stuff that will come out in the deliberations and the interviews and all that sort of stuff. This will go way deep, way deep. If it's rotten at the roots, it'll be rotten at the branches as well. And Vince McMahon is the root of all of WWE, basically. So there'll be a lot of people worried. Definitely be a lot of people worried. There'll be a lot of names that will start to come out. A lot of allegations will get thrown around. There will also be a lot of older wrestlers who will be trying to get their name in the news about stuff like this. So we've got to
take it with a pinch of salt.
Sometimes we have to take this stuff that... I'm not saying what Paul Roma said is wrong. I'm not saying what he said is right. That's not what I'm saying. But there is a lot of people in the wrestling business who will work anybody to get a buck, basically. So we just need to take that and bear that in mind. But when it comes to what's going on here, we haven't heard 5% of it, I don't think. The allegations have been thrown around. This lady's obviously... Jen has come forward. Mrs. Grant has come forward and said what she's wanting, and it's just blown everything wide open. So there's going to be way more. There's going to be way more, mate.
I think there's a Janelle Grant story, but the one that's also sort of grown arms and legs just now, which could have actual, like, obviously the Vince McMahon thing is going to have a detrimental impact to WWE, but there's one that's grown arms and legs even more, and that's the Ashley Massaro story that's coming out as well, in terms of, so for those that don't know, there was, Ashley went to sort of executives stating that she was assaulted when it was a tribute, was it the troops?
For the troops in overseas.
She was assaulted, she reported it, and basically...
She wasn't just assaulted, she was raped. So,
She was sexually assaulted, raped, and then it was obviously, it got escalated up and it just essentially got swept under the carpet. And now the names that are getting mentioned now is Stephanie McMahon and Triple H as well. You know, and it's... that could have a massive impact. Obviously, Steph has sort of taken a little step to the side or step back from WWE, which is fair news. That you get the impression that was a bit of self-preservation, just from my opinion. It's very much a self-preservation thing, I think. But if Triple H gets tarred with this, which he is, because there's no way that a senior executive who's also married to another senior executive that got reported to isn't going to know. So he is as culpable, in my opinion. You know, ignorance is not an excuse.
No. Burying your head under the sand is not an excuse, definitely.
Yeah, and I think I do agree with you, and it's quite a troubling time. I think it's a case of, it is very much the tip of the iceberg. And, you know, if you go back through the annals of history in terms of WWE, WWF at the time, you had, like, you know, Pat Patterson allegations that have happened in the past. You know, there's a whole host of stuff that can get ripped up, and you know, there are people that are no longer with us. Is it fair to get that brought back up again, you know, in terms of the victims and also people that the allegations come through? I think is definitely going to get worse for WWE than get better, especially in the short term.
It's a horrible time. Horrible stuff to talk about. We need to touch on it because it is important news and that sort of stuff, but it's not nice to talk about, is it? You know what I mean?
No.
But it's a big thing. And like I say,
everybody,
there's going to be way more stuff coming out. Go on.
Everybody is innocent until proven guilty. Okay, we can all have our opinions, and you know, it's I'll have my own personal opinions on the situation. You will as well, Hoxie. You know, we're both husbands. We're both, like, you know, and I've got a sister. It's like family members, you know, and I can't imagine the family of these people where, you know, the purported victims are coming forward with stories like this is just horrific. So, yeah, as you say, it's very important to touch upon. But let's move swiftly on. We just thought it was important to mention it there, guys. So that was the WWE news. Hopefully, there's going to be more positive things to come. But we'll move on to TNA just now, and TNA Wrestling has exercised the option to extend the contract of Josh Alexander. Thoughts on that, Jose? How good is Josh Alexander?
He's class. He's top class performer. He was their champion, right?
Yeah.
And he's not their champion anymore. He's top class. I think he had one of their longest title reigns in a long time. Great wrestler, really good, quote unquote, professional wrestler. And I can see why they've done this. The option is always with the company. It's never the option for the talent, if you know what I mean. There is, obviously, if the company don't want to continue, then that's why it's there. But with all the stuff that's going on, all of the issues and the rumblings and stuff which happening with TNA, obviously with Scott D'Amore going, all the issues with there, they've done this to keep hold of one of their best talents, one of their better talents. And do you blame them? Really? You know what I mean? Do you blame them? He's like I say, he's one of their top guys who's had amazing matches. And he's been a featured sort of talent on their pay-per-views, obviously world champion and stuff for a very long time. He's one of their guys, really. It's like, I don't know, it's like letting somebody like a Drew go or a Seth go, or what, you know what I mean? When you've got those those big talented guys, because he would leave TNA and he would walk straight into an AEW, or he would go to an NXT. He'd just walk straight in. So to take them on that, option is, fair play to them.
Yeah, so I mean, the terms of the contract obviously haven't been announced; they never will be yet. So it is for the next year because it's a year option apparently. But after that, he does become a free agent. So the question I've got then is, do you, knowing that he's only there for a year, and obviously he was very, very close to Scott D'Amore, as you said, okay, really close with him, do you build around a Josh Alexander, knowing that he's only got a year left, he's potentially unhappy with with obviously the antics of Scott D'Amore leaving, etc.? Do you take that risk of building around him? What do you do in that situation?
You need to get the buy-in from the talent. So I think you've probably got 6 months grace with this. So you've got, obviously, with new management coming in, he's been there for a long time now. Yeah. I don't know exactly how long, but it's got to be 5+ years or whatever he's been there for a long time. So he's already sort of one of the guys anyway. So I don't think you necessarily need to, quote unquote, push him. He doesn't need the goddamn push, brother. He doesn't need that. He just needs to be featured in different things. So you could have him for 6 months doing stuff, going over people, putting people over. You can have him in feuds and that sort of stuff. That's not an issue. But then you get that buy-in then from him in 6 months' time as to, like, okay, we've got the new management. How are you feeling? This is the plans we've got for you. Is that okay? This is where we're going as a company. Would you be interested in this? Blah, 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 blah. And then you have those conversations about a new contract. It won't be like, oh, he will sign the day before his contract runs out. It doesn't necessarily work that way. But I think they've got time. They've got time both ends to sort of see where this goes. They will be desperate to keep hold of him. I guarantee they will be desperate to keep hold of him. But I think, and this is going to be a really, not a strong thing, it might be a bit snug, not necessarily stiff, it'll be a bit snug. I think he's too good for TNA as they are right now. He's a standout top tier performer. He could walk into an NXT, a good NXT, you know what I mean? He could walk into a main event NXT picture or the secondary belt, if you know what I mean, and have great matches. And he could also work with a lot of those guys who are not necessarily come through as a wrestler, you know, those sort of people. I think he's a foundational player on any card. I think he's a foundational talent in terms of putting other guys over or showing them the ropes. But he's also got top level ability as well, and he's got a great look. The wrestling ear muffs and all that. You know what I mean? He's got a great look about him. Almost a throwback ability as well. Technical wrestling ability, like just technique and throws and suplexes and holds and all that sort of stuff. And he's got a great look. So I think he's a top level performer. I really do.
Do you think he'd be fast track? I think NXT would be the best option for him. Like I say, I think
1,000,000%. Yeah.
Do you think he'd be fast tracked to the main event, main roster?
No. You could see him. I mean, I don't know how old he is. Let's have a quick look. I just want to see how old this guy is. I'm just having a quick look. Sorry, he's the same age as me. He's 36, so he's 87. I think he's got a couple of years or an 18-month run in an NXT, and he could get himself involved in on the main roster. But I think he's definitely a top quality NXT player. He would really shine in that environment, and then they would be able to do stuff with him. I don't think he's like a WWE World Heavyweight Champion level performer, but he's definitely IC sort of United States kind of level talent.
Upper mid card.
Upper mid card, yeah, definitely. But in an NXT, he'll be a standout. He'll be an absolute standout performer. Yeah, it'd be good. It'd be good. Good to see him. Good to see him get an opportunity. Good to see him get a shot. I wouldn't want him to go to AEW. He'll just get lost in the shuffle. He'll just be one big blob of mess there. If he went to an NXT, he'd be top level, top tier player. I would like to see him there. I've seen him work. I've seen like shows and pay-per-views that he's been on and matches and stuff, and I really rate him. I think he's really good. So he'll be He'd be there, I would hope. You would think.
Excellent. Okay, what we'll do is we'll leave the AEW news because there's a few bits and pieces we'll talk through in between the lists. And you said it yourself, he'd be a great sort of upper mid-card talent, which leads us on to our top 10 list. Now, the Intercontinental
Champions. You did there, mate. That's a great segue. That's a great segue.
The Intercontinental Championship is the legendary belt. Okay, everybody talks about the main title, but you know, the IC title is legendary. It's seen as the sort of the workhorse championship, right? It's the stepping stone to become the guy, the champ. Some of the all-time greats have had memorable runs with the IC championship. Probably we'll mention some of these in the lists. And it's been in every era of wrestling when you think about it. So let's get fired into it, Hawks. The top 10 Intercontinental Champions, in our opinion, of all time. You ready for this?
Are you ready?
I'm born ready, mate. Born ready. Okay, Hoxie, who is it first this week? I don't know. I've lost track of it.
I think it's me this week. I think
you're
it's
number
me first
10
this week.
Okay.
My number
Kick
10.
us off.
My number 10 of the top 10 greatest Intercontinental Champions in history is the guy who started it all. It is Pat Patterson. On the 1st of September 1979 in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, which is a little known fact of where the title was won in the first instance, was actually in Rio, is Pat Patterson. We can't really talk about the IC belt. We can't really talk about the belt without having the guy who started it all. And we talk about this and we say this quite a lot, and I feel bad that I have to premise this, but we are talking about the wrestler, not necessarily the person or whatever. Okay, we'll move on from that. But basically, he's one of the greatest minds in wrestling. He was one of the best baby faces in wrestling. He was also one of the best heels in wrestling as well. He was part of probably one of the best tag teams in wrestling as well. Like, this guy had sort of done it all, done it everywhere. It was an amazing achievement. The funny thing is, so we talk about winning it in Rio de Janeiro. It was a fictional thing. He didn't actually win it there. It wasn't even real. Like they said, there was it was like a tournament, like a one-night tournament, wasn't it, in fucking Rio or whatever, and he won it there. So when you look at it on a piece of paper and you see like where the belt was won, it was Rio de Janeiro, but it wasn't. I don't know where it was. I know it was in North America, and he beat Ted DiBiase, and they unified some championships, didn't they, to win it? I think,
it was he was the WWF North American Heavyweight Champion.
Yeah,
and then it was the South American Heavyweight Championship in that tournament that was fictional, and then it got merged together. Yeah,
got merged together. But basically, Pat Patterson, number 10, great worker, phenomenal worker. Super face, brought this belt and sort of ran with it. He had it for a long time before he lost it to Ken Patera. And we can't talk about this belt without the guy who won it. And they mention it on WWE even now. They talk about this. There was, on the introduction, they used to have like the little video package at the start. They used to have him there with the belt and all that sort of stuff. So it's a big deal. It's one of the most prestigious championships in all of wrestling. We know this. We've spoke about this. It's the reason we're doing this list. It's a phenomenal belt. I think it's one of the most, especially not the new one, the one they had sort of 80s through
the new one
the
is
90s.
sick though.
The new one's all right. I don't think it's as nice as the old one. We might edit a quick picture of the two belts so you guys can decide. I'll put a little poll somewhere. But I think it's one of the most beautiful belts as well. I loved it when they with the white leather as well. I thought it was stunning with the white leather. But we'll talk about that a little bit more anyway. But my number 10, Pat Patterson. At a pace, at a chase.
We'll mention Pat later on. Okay, my number 10 then. So for those that haven't listened before, the first person gets their number 10, then it goes over, and the next person gets 2, and then it goes like that until we get to number 1. So my number 10 goes to the self-proclaimed greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time, up until very recently, he had the longest one reign with the Intercontinental Championship, and it's Honky Tonk Man. And this goes on to, maybe we don't like the person. We're talking about the sort of gimmick and him as a champion, right? As I say, he had one and only reign with it, and it lasted 454 days, and that in itself was really, really special. It started when he upset, it was Ricky the Dragon Steamboat to win the championship, and then he just pissed everybody off with how he continued to maintain his title. It was disqualifications, it was countouts, you name it, and
all the
Jimmy
dirty
Hart
tactics.
got involved. Yeah, Jimmy Hart, Peggy Sue, like they all got involved in it. It was incredible, and if you think about some of the names that he actually beat as well over time, Steamboat, Billy Jack Haynes, George the Animal Steel, Brutus the Barber Beefcake, Bruno Sammartino couldn't take the Intercontinental title off him. So that in itself is like fair fucking play to you. He had a monumental feud with Randy Savage. Randy Savage obviously turned face, and like it was just incredible. And then obviously after his 450 odd days, he eventually lost it, which we'll talk about shortly. It's just a dick. The gimmick was cheesy as fuck. He was bad. He was a bad guy, but he was a successful bad guy. And I think you might not like him, but you've got to put him on a list for one of the greatest Intercontinental Champions just for what he did for the belt.
I'm going to put a bit of respect on that name.
Absolutely. And to have that single longest reign, he had to do something right.
Yeah.
So yes, Honky Tonk Man, man number 10.
Brilliant. Cool.
Okie dokie. Moving on to number 9, the man that stopped Honky Tonk Man's reign. The Ultimate Warrior. And again, it's a character we have shat on in this podcast. We don't like him as a talent, but when I think of Ultimate Warrior, I actually think of Ultimate Warrior as the IC champ. I don't think of him as the big champ. Maybe it's just like is blanking it out. But from the Honky Tonk Man being the longest reigning, he crushed the Honky Tonk Man in 27 seconds at SummerSlam in 1988. He was so over. I mean, we've talked about Ultimate Warrior before. He destroyed everybody, and then he actually had a feud with Rick Rude, and Rick Rude got the title at WrestleMania 5. Was it WrestleMania 5?
If you say so, yes, maybe.
I'm sure it was WrestleMania 5. Rick Rude is absolutely one of the favourites, and then obviously he won it back from Rick Rude at SummerSlam in 1989. He did take from the Honky Tonk Man, where he was just the sort of evil gimmick. Ultimate Warrior just showed he was just fucking demolishing everybody. Like, he dominated Andre the Giant. He took it to the next one, WrestleMania. It was at the Toronto Sky Dome. What was it, 67,000? He defeated Hulk Hogan, and the rest is history.
The rest is history.
You might not like him, but he was over as fuck, and he's synonymous for me with the Intercontinental title. So yeah, for me, the Ultimate Warrior's man number 9.
Cool. We might talk about that a little bit later.
Excellent. Okay, Huxley, over to you. You're number 9.
My number 9 is the hugely, massively, predominantly underrated star that is Tito Santana. Arriba! I don't think, because I think a lot of guys who watched Tito watched him when he was doing the Matador gimmick sort of in the 90s, and it was like a bit of cartoonish and a bit of a bit of a sort of shell of what he once was, but he was working, he was still over then. Jesus, he was still over. Yeah. When we look at the 1980s version of Tito, that run that he had with the title, sort of in that title mix, 5 years or whatever. So he won it initially in, let me just refer to my notes on the internet. He won it initially in 1984. And he had some great matches with guys like Cowboy Bob Orton, Don Morocco as well, who was a former champion, who was a former IC champion as well when it was NWA stuff. Phenomenal worker. What Tito did with the belt is he sort of solidified this title as we talk about the IC belt as like that workhorse championship. We talk about all the great workers that had the belt. They might not necessarily have moved up to that next level, but a lot of them did. It sort of made these guys, and it established that belt as that high level workhorse championship in WWF at the time. The best feud that Tito had was with Greg Valentine, the Hammer Valentine. If you haven't watched this match, I haven't watched this match for a long time, but I remember watching it. It was Tomcat, Kev O'Neill, my trainer, my wrestling trainer, who put me onto this match and said, if you want to look at sort of hard hitting, but like really high risk at the time, but really great storytelling gimmick match, is the match that he had with Greg Valentine in the steel cage match. You have to go out of your way to watch it. I'm 99.9% sure it's still on YouTube. If not, it'll be knocking around on like Daily Motion or whatever. Somewhere we'll have it. Go out and watch that match. No spoilers or anything, but it's a great match. And like I say, Tito he's hugely underrated. We like I said, we think of him as the Matador. Strip that away when he was knocking about the houses, doing his graft and having these matches. Phenomenal. Great face. Amazing baby face. For any aspiring wrestlers that may be listening to this, for any younger guys who might be wanting to see what it feels like to actually fight from underneath, which is a wrestling term we won't go into, but fighting from underneath and bringing that crowd with you and them trying to build and get behind you, go and watch Tito Santana. Phenomenal. Yeah, number 9. He had to get on my list. I knocked somebody out of this list to get him on when I started thinking about it a little bit more, so he had to get on there. 100% Tito Santana.
He's not on my list, but mine was the opposite. He got removed so I could get someone else on. So
there we go.
But yeah, really close. It was like the last moment. It's actually my next guy that I'm going to talk about after you do your number 8. That's who it was out of those two. So yeah. Anyway, moving on to your number 8, Hoxie.
My number 8, and this was really tough. I was struggling between the guy who I put as my number 8 and somebody else. And I'm thinking about it now. I'm not gonna. My hands are up here. The big podcasting hands are up here. Okay, I'm not making any amendments or any changes to this. But my number 8, without a shadow of a doubt, he says, is Mr. Perfect. When you talk about phenomenal workers and the IC belt, as whether it sort of took this route or whether it's been put in this position by wrestling fans, when you talk about workers, you've got to talk about Mr. Perfect. That top level talent, one of the greatest to ever step foot in a wrestling ring. The guy was phenomenal in everything he did. His selling was great. His heel work was great. When he wanted to work as a face, it was phenomenal. Obviously, Hall of Famer, everything you needed to do. He was two-time champion, and they weren't just like quick ones. He was dominant with those titles. He beat Tito Santana in a tournament to win his title. So he beat one of the best ever. And just like, obviously the matches with Brett that he had were just, oh my God, just stunning. Absolutely incredible. And I think he held the title the second time for like a long time. It was like nearly a year, 300 days or something like that. He's one of the longest reigning. 280 days. There we go. You've got stats to hand, so we were going to speak about this guy at some point later on,
potentially.
But yeah, so it was so close between this guy and another guy, but he just pipped it to the post. Because I love Mr. Perfect, but when you think about that IC belt and that workhorse title, you see that picture of him in that blue singlet, lifting the belt up after he's kicked someone's head in and hit them with a perfect plex or whatever. Yeah, number 8, Mr. Perfect. What a phenomenal worker. Some of them vignettes as well, like when he's like throwing the ball to himself and like hitting a half-court shot and stuff. Yeah. So Bruce Pritchard has come out and said that the half-court shot was one and done. I don't know if that's true or not, but apparently that was one and done.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Which is just nuts. But the perfect athlete, Mr. Perfect, number 8 on the greatest Intercontinental Champions of all time.
We'll talk about Mr. Perfect.
Do you want to know who I got off my list to do it or not? Do you want to know? Should I tell you?
Well, no, because that's a spoiler. I want to be surprised. You can tell me at the end.
I'm only joking, yeah.
When the recording stops, you can tell me. So chat, listeners, you'll never know. Okay. My number 8 then, moving on. That's it, only Dan's. Okay. Moving on to my number 8 is probably one of the most popular wrestlers of all time, Pedro Morales. Puerto Rican. He was already, before he got the IC belt, one of the longest reigning WWF champions ever. I'm assuming from that laugh that he's on your list at some point. If not, I'll be surprised. He won his first Intercontinental title in 1980. I think it was the 8th of December, or it could be the 12th of August, depending on if it's American dates. I can't actually remember. He actually was the first ever Triple Crown winner in WWF WWE history. So that's winning the tag team, Intercontinental, and WWF title. You mentioned this guy earlier, Ken Patera, beating Pat Patterson. He was the guy that defeated Ken Patera for the IC title. And then if you look again, I did it with Honky Tonk Man. If you go through who Pedro fought and beat, we've got Larry Zbyszko, we've got Stan Hansen, Sergeant Slaughter, Killer Khan, but he's feud with, again, a guy you've mentioned, Don Morocco, is just crazy good. Again, if you haven't seen it, go and see it. Bloody, brutal, just fucking hard-hitting, so good. He was then the first ever 2-time Intercontinental champion, because the belt switched between the two. He beat Morocco again in a Texas death match, and then he reigned for 424 days. Okay, so again, it's like the third longest or whatever it is now. He had a great, you've mentioned him as well, Greg Valentine. He had a great feud with him as well. Just fucking so good. He lost the title again in 1983, January 1983, against Don Morocco again. It was a great feud. He has the combined reign of 617 days as Intercontinental Champion. I think that is still the record. I don't think there's anybody who's broken it. And, it's going to be a while until someone breaks it. Probably the first guy that is synonymous with being a great WWF main champion and the Intercontinental Champion that's synonymous with both. And, he probably could be higher up on my list, but there's people that mean a bit more. But I think you've just got to put respect on the Pedro Morales name, right? Yes. It's just, he's one of the best ever to do it.
Yep.
So yes, my number 8 is Pedro Morales.
Cool. Is it my number 7 now?
Cool. No, it's my number 7 now. So.
It's your number 7. Okay.
My number 7. I'm gonna give you a quote. Hard work pays off, dreams come true, bad times don't last, but bad guys do. He wasn't a bad guy, he was the bad guy. It was Razor Ramon. He beat Rick Martel. That's so good. He beat Rick Martel in 1993 for the vacant Intercontinental Championship, and then he just did so much more with it. He was the first ever 4-time Intercontinental Champion. Really impressive. Even to this day, it's still amazing. I think accumulated time, it's about 434 days. I think when you think of Razor Ramon as Intercontinental Champion, you think of his feud with Shawn Michaels, right? Not just one ladder match, but 2 ladder matches. Yeah, WrestleMania 10, he became the undisputed Intercontinental Champion, and then there was another ladder match at SummerSlam 1995, which was just as good, the HBK won, sorry. But yeah, Razor, I think for me, he was the first cool bad guy. You know, I can't think of anybody before him. You know, but in wrestling, when you think of a bad guy, you think of, I fucking hate the guts of him. But with Razor Ramon, he was like, you're cool as fuck. I really like you. It's like he's the first bad guy that you're supposed to boo, but you're going to cheer him. And, you know, he had major feuds with Diesel at the time, Jeff Jarrett, Goldust as well. The Goldust feud was brilliant. But yeah, just a great character, and you know, just oozing machismo. You know, it's the gold chains.
I didn't think I was going to hear that word tonight.
There you go.
Mate.
There you go. The gold chains matched with the gold belt, and it was just the perfect thing for him to wear. So yeah, he had to be on my list somewhere. Just the ultimate bad guy, and yeah, fucking brilliant. I love Scott Hall, one of the greatest minds in the business. What he did with the click and stuff, going over to WCW, that's by the by, but he was one of the guys that just got it, and I think Intercontinental Champion, just chef's kiss. Brilliant. Love him.
Yep. Reckon. We'll talk about him a little bit later.
There we go. Number 7 for you, Hoxie.
My number 7's Pedro Morales.
Oh, there you go.
One of the greatest wrestlers. Not like we talk about wrestlers. There's difference, if you know what I mean. But one of the greatest names in WWF or WWF history, Pedro Morales. One of the longest reigning WWF type champions, one of the longest reigning Intercontinental Champions, like, as you say, Triple Crown guy, tag team champion, massive draw in terms of monetization, like monetary value to the WWF and the WWF. That Puerto Rican, that sort of Hispanic base in the Northeast territory that they had, obviously with New York and all that sort of stuff. We talk about Bruno Sammartino as being a big deal with that audience. Pedro Morales stepped in after him and just ran with that ball as well. We're not going to go through the history of Pedro Morales. We're not going to do a deep dive on him, if that makes sense, but spend a bit of time and just have a look at what this guy achieved in wrestling, what he did, where he wrestled, what he did for the WWF and the WWF, what he did for Vince Sr. and Jr. It will make you realize how much of a big deal this guy actually was. We talk about some of the, like I said, the biggest names, those big draws and stuff. Pedro Morales will be on a list, like actual factual information, like monetary information that you can find. He will be on there as one of the biggest draws in history, especially when you take into account inflation. Fuck me, I would love to know how much money this guy would draw now, if we looked at it that way. All the money. But yeah, he, as you say, like that early history of the belt, the early sort of title. His name is synonymous, and I love that word, and I was really looking forward to using that tonight. His name is synonymous with their belt, and as you say, he's one of like the longest reigning champions. I think, I don't know this for sure because I'm not, but I think he's just been overtaken by Gunther as the longest reigning champion. I think he's a lot. So Gunther overtook him for the single reign. I think for combined days. I think for combined title reign. I genuinely think he's just been 1 minute caller.
See, I don't think so. I think
title reign length 622 days.
I was wrong. Then there you
go. What was Morales?
Pedro was 617. You're absolutely right.
There you go. There's not much in it.
There you go. Nah.
But yeah, he's But up until 5 days ago, he was the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion combined in history. But either way, it's going to take a lot of beating ever again to get to number 2. Never mind number 1. So it doesn't happen very often, and he was a big deal. He had to get onto the list, number 7. And he was, people say, oh, old wrestling was just fucking rest holds and this stuff. Just go and watch some fucking old wrestling and see what they did, and it'll blow your head off your ass. So just get involved. get involved.
If you're listening to this podcast and you don't appreciate like a Pedro Morales Don Morocco match, or any matches that we've talked about in the past of the old days, this probably isn't going to be the podcast for you.
Go watch some PWG and have a wank.
I always say, there are bits of wrestling for everything, but me and Hoxie, and I'm going to speak on behalf of you, Hoxie, we have an appreciation for all manners of wrestling. But for us, the old school way of doing it, old school's cool, man. Roddy Piper said it himself. Old school is cool. So if you don't like it, there is an option for you. You can fuck off. Moving on.
Exactly. Love
so your number 6, Hoxie boy.
My number 6 is Albert. No, it's not. It's not Albert. Jesus, somebody joking. I don't even know if he was a fucking
He was.
champion. Was he actually?
I was about to fucking... You're a cunt.
I'm joking. It was Lance Storm. No. Right, my number 6, all joking aside, is The Miz. I think we sleep on The Miz. When it's all said and done, and we say this quite often, don't we? Like, when all said and done in 10, 15, 20, 30 years' time or whatever, we're going to look back on The Miz and think, holy shit, like, what did we have here? Why? We want The Miz back. We want somebody like The Miz in the WWE or whatever it'll be called then. We want somebody like him back, involved in it. He's 8-time Intercontinental Champion, and he's up there as, like, obviously 8 times. It's going to be a lot of reigns. He's up there as one of the longest reigning Intercontinental Champions as well. You look at some of the matches that this guy has had. He's obviously as well. He's won the WWE title. He's won the tag team title. So he's Triple Crown and all that sort of stuff. But when you look at his accolades and you understand like what he does, like the Intercontinental Championship was his belt for a long time. He had some great matches, some great feuds, some unbelievable. I'm not going to say 5-star matches, if you know what I mean, but he had the promos that he would do, the heel work that he would do, the way he would get underneath people's skin. He beat Roman Reigns for one of them, didn't he? He beat Roman Reigns for one of the IC belts. There's not many people who's beat Roman Reigns in the WWF, and he was one of them, and he beat him for a belt. He's great feuds with guys like Ziggler. He talk about getting heat. He beat Zack Ryder the night after Zack Ryder won the belt at Mania. When we talk about that people power pushing that, was it WrestleMania 31? 32? So, yeah. 33? Somewhere around the early WrestleMania 30s. When Zack Ryder won that ladder match for the title the night after The Miz come out and beat him on Raw. It's just brilliant. I always talk about The Miz, and it always brings me back to that promo that he did on Talking Smack or whatever it was, with the Daniel Bryan thing. If you haven't seen that or you don't know what we're talking about, it is Talking Smack, isn't it? It's a panel show. It's a panel show basically. If you just type in The Miz promo on Daniel Bryan, you will see what this means. The Miz gets a lot of shit because it's like, oh, he started in like reality TV and he was fucking not a real wrestler and all this sort of shit. He is one of the best that WWE have ever had. Like I said, when all said and done, we look back, he is first ballot Hall of Famer. He's done some of the most amazing stuff. And also, we just need to put a bit of respect on The Miz's name. We really, really do. He's a great heel. I hated him for so long, and then it clicked, and I was like, of course I hate him, because he's a fucking great heel.
Get it.
And then I just respected him, basically. So, yeah, number 6, The Miz. One of the great IC champions, one of the greatest in WWF of all time. Not even a shadow of a doubt. Argue with me all you want. You're wrong.
I won't argue with you because I'll talk about him later.
There we go.
Yeah. But yeah, I'll talk about him later.
Yep.
Okay,
Cool.
okay. Moving on to my number 6 then. And it's a name you're probably going to be surprised at, but my number 6 is Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes got his first singles championship in WWE. Was the back in 2011.
Who are you and what have you done with
I'll-
Human Shields?
Hey, I always said that he was an upper mid-card talent. But he got his first Intercontinental title beating Ezekiel Jackson in 2011. It was... yeah, I know. And I think the reason why I definitely wanted him on this list, because he is the guy that brought back the OG Intercontinental title with the white belt, with the white leather, because that is, I agree with you, it's an absolute thing of beauty, right? It is an amazing belt. So good. Again, I'll try and get a picture of it. I'll put it in between me and Hoxie. Like that, if I was to ever buy, like, get a glass cabinet with all the belts, that's probably the first belt I would buy.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Just because that and like the Winged Eagle belt, just because of what that means to me as well, in terms of, it's just so stunning. So yeah, he brought that back. I think that was at Hell in the Cell in 2011. He's actually a 2-time Intercontinental Champion, so he's not got the longevity and stuff of it. I think his first reign lasted about 7 months, which for Cody at that time was a great achievement, because he wasn't as over as he is now, obviously. And then he lost Intercontinental title to the Big Show. Now, my opinions of Cody are well documented in this podcast. Go back and listen to it all. But he made the Intercontinental Championship a real championship again. That makes sense. It's like,
okay.
So yeah, I think that he epitomised at the time what the Intercontinental title should have been. Do I believe that he should get the big belt? No, I don't. I still think he's an Intercontinental Champion every day of the week. But that's
boo, shame.
But
shame.
For me, in terms of, because of what he did for the belt, bringing it back to sort of that sort of level again, and bringing back the white leather belt, he had to be on my list. To be honest, thinking about it now, he's probably a bit too high for me, but I'll placate the crowd a little bit. I'll send the fans home happy. It'll be fine. But yeah, Cody Rhodes, my number 6. Fair play to him.
Do you know what I loved? The match that he had with the Big Show when he won the title back.
Yeah,
was I don't know, it's like TLC or Extreme Rules or whatever. It was when the Big Show stepped through the table. Like he didn't go in the table. He didn't go through the table. Like he stepped through it and broke
Show's
it.
face.
And he was like Cody was celebrating like he'd won the big one, like he finished the story, and it was just the Big Show putting his foot through the table. It was such a great fucking finish.
It's a moment, right?
Yeah, and obviously the old mask when he was. Don't film me like I'm ugly.
I'm ugly, yeah.
Yeah, I'm disfigured, just brilliant. You will see the light soon. I got a feeling. I honestly, all joking aside, dodging, what the hell? I genuinely did not think he would be on your list. That's crazy. He's not on mine. I'll be honest with you straight away now. He's not on mine, but I think you're just you're protesting too much about this upper mid-card talent gimmick, mate. I think it's too much.
I'm sorry, I just don't get it. And it might be one of those ones.
Get it, man.
It might be similar to you with The Miz, in terms of you fucking hated him for a long time and then it just clicks. I'm hoping it does, but yeah, there's.
When he beats Roman Reigns at WrestleMania XL, and we're sat there watching it with a beer. And you see the pop and you see the emotion, it'll get you. It'll get you.
If he beats Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, no.
Have we got another bet coming up? Hold on.
Have we if he beats Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, it will not be clean.
Fuck off!
It will not be a clean win.
Of course it will. Of course it will. It will. It will. You can't have to face basically rising against all the odds and it not be clean in the middle. It'll be clean in the middle.
No.
It will be clean in the middle.
Tell you what, let's make a bet. right? Let's fucking do it right here, right now. What's the bet, right?
You make the bet. Go on. I'm
No,
getting
tell you
really
what.
close to the mic now.
Tell you what, right? The listeners, you make the bet.
Ooh,
right?
The listeners can make the
Okay.
bet. It has to be PG.
Yeah, it has to be PG. I ain't getting my balls out for no one.
And he's Scottish. He has them out most days.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's why I'm not standing up just now. I'm trying to think. So, if Cody Rhodes wins clean, right? Like you say, he's going to. What do I need to do? I genuinely believe that he will not win. He either will not win or he won't win clean. You decide. You decide what my forfeit is. I mean, we had the old one about Okada. I mean, Okada could still happen. You know, it's not. He's not debuted in AEW yet, Hoxie. So that one still stands.
Signed, sealed, and delivered. That's it. So
that one still stands.
Happen. Yeah,
it'd be fucking horrendous, right? I can't imagine putting that Celtic top on
WrestleMania, mate. Oh, imagine it. Think about it.
I'd be. Mark out of 10 is over. But yeah, you guys decide. Okay, so we are now at the 60s just now. So what we usually do, again, if you haven't listened to it before, we take a slight break and we talk about either stuff that's happening in the Rumble. I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. Yeah, excuse me, Jesus.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Bless you, my child.
But what we're going to do is we're going to talk a bit about AEW because there's a few newsworthy items, I think, that we can talk about to split up the lists. And everybody seems to like our news items and general wrestling discussions, Hoxie. So, okay, so I'll start off. Recently, so AEW have been criticised in the promos that both Darby Allin and Wardlow had done recently. So Darby Allin, basically, if we start just with that one, it's the promo began with Darby Allin asking Matt and Nick, the Bucks, if they remembered like AEW's mission statement about changing the world, and then he spoke about begging for a job, but they turned around and said they didn't see anything in him, and then we watched, them signing the All Friends Wrestling. And then Darby Allin suggested it was AEW EVP and current WWE star Cody Rhodes, who eventually hired him. So it's going back to that whole, it's all about Cody Rhodes again. It's about a WWE star. And then the following week, it was Wardlow again, said something very similar in terms of it's what's happening there? Why are they doing it? I mean, Is this a Tony Khan thing? Is this just them thinking they're being smart and clever, trying to get the cheap pop? What's the script?
The issue is there's no script. Not necessarily the issue is there's no script, but it's I don't know why they do this, and it doesn't go the other way. I know there's like tiny little things that have sort of been insinuated from the other way, but you've got to be really smart to understand it and see like what Punk and Cody have said when they've been in WWE about AEW or whatever. Not necessarily about AEW, but about stuff that has happened in AEW. Okay. Pepsi doesn't talk about Coke. Coke doesn't talk about Pepsi. You shouldn't focus and concentrate on what you're doing and what you can achieve and what you can basically change and affect. AEW, WWE, also say AEW are not on the WWE's radar anymore. I'm sorry to say it. They are nowhere near the kind of threat, quote unquote threat, that they thought that the like All Elite Wrestling was. At one point, you could see there was no panic there, but they were making decisions that they wouldn't normally make on getting talent signed or giving bigger contracts or sort of deals and buildings and TV networks and all that sort of stuff. They were making changes that they wouldn't normally do, and that was sort of, you could see it was being affected. But I think once they were 12 months in and they realized that the people who were we're dealing with AEW, we're fucking morons. It was like, we're all right. We're all right. And the guys who went there for the promise of stuff or the opportunity of stuff, they're starting to come back. You've got an Andrade come back. You've got a Cody come back. You've got a Punk who got back into wrestling and couldn't get out there fucking fast enough. He come back. I wouldn't be surprised if guys like Miro would be back in the WWE at some point. I know Miro's a Triple H guy, so it depends what's going on there. But I think when they realised what the situation is, they didn't want anything to do with it. When you've got a Wardlow, who should be one of their biggest stars, there's no excuse. Sorry about the big podcast in hand, but I gesture quite a lot. Wardlow is one of their biggest stars. He should be one of their tippy-top guys. They massively dropped the ball with him when they finished the MJF feud. They had him right on that peak of that mountain, and rather than keeping him on top of that mountain or maybe giving him a bigger mountain to climb, they let him roll down the other side. He's probably using things like that or the Cody things to try and gain a bit of traction or get spoken about or get the internet talking about him or get Twitter or X or whatever, like retweeting stuff and, he's talking about Cody. And the same thing with Darby as well, that they're trying to get heat, brother, off somebody who isn't there and somebody who is a big deal right now. And that is just stupid because it makes you look little league.
Yep.
It takes the shine off you. When you're talking about what you're doing, and then you give the viewer or the fan or the casual the opportunity to think, who's he talking about? And then they go and see WrestleMania. Like, you've got AEW doing a little bit, and they talk about Cody, and all you got to do is Google Cody, and he's doing stuff with The Rock. He's doing stuff with Roman Reigns. He's going to be headlining WrestleMania. Like, what's all this stuff going on? Like, you turn those people away from what you're doing onto something bigger and better, which it is bigger and better, right?
Yeah, 100%.
You can't deny that, Shields. Okay, no. The listeners and the viewers of Mu10, you cannot deny that WrestleMania is a bigger deal than anything AEW are doing right now, and they just need to stop. It didn't work way back when with Bischoff doing stuff and Russo chatting shit and some of the guys talking about fucking the guys up north and all that bullshit, and Vince and Triple H and all that. Nobody cared. They didn't care then, and they don't care now. Stop it.
The difference is with that, okay, that's a really good analogy to make there. The difference is WCW was a threat to WWF. You know, it was
for 83 weeks.
You know, legit, they were. It was a war, right? This isn't a war, right? WWE could blow them out the water if they want to, right? It's, it is what it is. What they've got to be really, really conscious of, right? If this sort of bullshit continues and continues and continues, as we're approaching WrestleMania, if these sort of things happen, it's going to be butts and seats moment from WCW in terms of the Mick Foley. It's like Mick Foley's going to win their title. It's going to put butts in seats. It's going to be exactly the same thing because AEW fans will go and see their fan favourite Cody Rhodes at Mania, and let's say he does finish the story and beats Roman Reigns clean in the middle of the ring. He fucking won't. But let's say he does, right?
Yeah.
But they're not going to go back. Why would they? Yeah. MJF's
what are they
not
getting
there.
If they watch a WrestleMania, because this WrestleMania is going to be quite special. I've got a real feeling it's going to be a big deal. It's going to be brilliant. Like you say, if they go and watch that, what benefit have they got for changing back the channel? To see Moxley bleed for the 700th time, to see the Young Bucks do the same match they've done forever, to see Swerve Strickland not win a title that he should be, to see fucking Sting have his last match and Ric Flair die in the ring or whatever. You know what I mean? No one's going to want to turn back and watch that. They're going to want to see Solo Sikoa. They're going to want to see the Usos. They're going to want to see Rollins. They're going to want to see Cody. They're going to want to see The Rock. They're going to want to see Reigns. They're going to want to see all these Rhea Ripley. As soon as Rhea Ripley comes on the television, they ain't going to change the channel back. The stars over there, right? You don't want to see... And I love Darby Allin. I think he's a great talent. But they ain't going to turn back and see a guy with face paint off on his little 5'6" fucking guy when they turn the channel and they see Rhea Ripley or a Gunther beat the shit out of a Sheamus or whatever's going to happen. You know what I mean? We don't know.
Or the fucking athleticism of Logan Paul.
Or Logan Paul.
You know what I mean?
It's one of the biggest celebrities in the world right now. It's a very, very interesting time, but don't just sell your shit. Sell your shit. If it's good enough and you sell it well enough, people will buy it.
Yeah.
Don't give them the opportunity to go and buy someone else's bullshit. That's selling 101. Focus on your positives, accentuate the positives, and take away those negatives. You sell on your USPs and sell your shit, man. People will want to see a Darby Allin and a Wardlow if they get booked right and if they sell it right. Focus on your own shit. It's ridiculous.
It's the fundamentals of wrestling, right? When you have a promo segment, correct me if I'm wrong, it is to put over your match. It's to sell tickets, to get bums on seats, right? Mm-hmm. And this should be a no-brainer. Darby Allin and Sting against the Young Bucks. For all their flaws, the Young Bucks are over with that crowd, right? It should be butts and seats without any hassle. And the added cherry on top, it's Sting's last match, right? Yeah. Why the fuck are you putting your eyes from your product, from this potential match, onto your opposition to a guy that was there, decided to leave from there and go to your opposition, your bigger, badder opposition? It makes no sense.
Why are they even talking about, oh, you're the EVPs and you wouldn't give me a job and you give your job to all your mates? You should be talking about Sting and all the shit that he's done in his 100%. Life. You should be talking about the importance of this match. You should be talking about what I watched Sting when I was a kid. It made me want to be a wrestler. I know it did for you as well, Matt. I know it did for you as well. Like Nick, you guys have spoke to me about this in the past. You know, I know how much you love Sting, and you're going to have his last match, and you want to take that legacy away. That's the stuff you want to be looking on. Like, and then you have the Young Bucks reply with, "Yeah, we wanted it to be Sting, and then we met this guy, and he was a piece of shit, in our opinion." Like, no, he's not a piece of shit. He's one of the greatest. He's one of the nicest guys. Look what he's done for me. Like, he's done for all these fans or whatever. Like, that's what you want to be selling on. You want people to buy in to the importance of this match. And if Sting loses and he goes out on his shield, how much of a big thing is that going to be? Well, we want to make sure he goes out. We want to make sure he doesn't walk out of this fucking match. That's what we want to do. We want to end that legacy and we want to cement our own legacy. Like, that's the story. That's the story. It's simple. It's easy. Why are they talking about Cody Rhodes? Why are they talking about being the boss? It's stupid. Makes no sense. It's no sense.
It's the all friendship wrestling thing that gets brought up all the time. It's like,
and they same shit. We've spoke about this before, Shields. Right? Sorry to cut you off, buddy. We've spoke about this before.
No.
It is the same story to every single fucking feud and match. Oh, you were my friend. You're not my friend anymore, and you're friends with somebody else, and I want to be your friend again. Like, fuck off. It's boring. It's boring. We've heard it 100 times. It's ridiculous. It's too much. It's too much.
It's far too much. And I mean,
getting hot, brother.
even MJF, right? Who MJF we love, and we've talked about MJF, how he's one of the greatest superstars out there at the moment.
Yep.
Even he, when he did his Tony Khan's a Mark promo, when he went fucking mental, fire me, you Mark, you know. Even he brought it up in terms of it's signing your friends. It's like, stop putting focus on that. You know, why are you doing that? It makes no sense. It's really, really frustrating. All they have to do, right, is Cody Rhodes isn't there anymore, right, and put Tony Khan over, right? Tony wants to be on screen, right? We know it. You can tell he wants to be one of the boys, right? So instead of Darby Allin desperate for
fibre of his being, yep.
Instead of Darby Allin going about Cody Rhodes, it's like, oh well, you wouldn't sign me, you wouldn't give me a job. Thank God Tony Khan gave me a job. Thank God he was there to sign me to the contract. It's like, why not put him over then? It's someone that's in the building, someone that's owning the company, and then it's realism, you know? It's like, I just don't get it, you know? And we've had our strong opinions on the AEW, right? And we've talked about it, and it's not us deliberately shitting on it every single week. That's not the intention of it. It's just absolute frustration from two wrestling fans that have seen a whole host of wrestling companies throughout their time watching wrestling, and AEW are doing the same stupid mistakes over and over again, and it's really, really annoying. It's really frustrating.
Those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. It's very simple.
Absolutely.
And we're not, like, we've said this before, dude, I want AEW to succeed. I want to see an alternative. I want to see great matches. I want to see all these guys perform and do these wonderful things and amazing stuff. They've had some incredible matches in AEW history. They really have. When they've done it right, it's perfect. But it's very, very few and far between. And it's getting fucking worse. And the more and more you hear about stuff like this happening, the more and more it's getting, quote unquote, booked into oblivion. They need to realize that they need to start making some changes. They really do.
They've got stars, right? They've got, we say about MJF, they've got him. They've got a Darby Allin. They've got a Swerve Strickland. They've got a Toni Storm, who has got one of the best things going in wrestling just now. I think she's fucking incredible. You know, they've got a Britt Baker. They've Wardlow. He should be that top tier talent. They've got FTR. It's like, it's there. It's just really, really frustrating. That's all. And what we're going to continue on just now, and it links quite nicely into here, talking about the Sting match. Again, I don't know if you've seen it, but we're going to start seeing Ric Flair getting more heavily involved now. And Ric Flair potentially siding with the Young Bucks. Thoughts?
So, he's the dirtiest player in the game. It would make sense. Sting and Flair, like, they go together, don't they? You know what I mean? It's the Joker and Batman, basically. They had their last match on Nitro, like the last Nitro match. Like, Flair, that night of Champions, just gave Sting his start, really, just that skyrocket for him. They go together, and they'll be together forever. They'll be synonymous with each other. Another great usage for synonymous. I'm loving that. Word of the night. But I can see a turn. Maybe it's more hope than it is like, you know what I mean, anything else. But I can see a Flair with the Bucks and then a turn. And could we see a magic moment of Sting going out, winning? You know what I mean? With a Flair turn or getting involved. The
double low blow
player in the game.
Double low blow.
The double turn. It's the, I'm siding with these guys, and then whoop, I had it all along. There's lots and lots of different ways that we can play this, but Sting and Flair's going to be involved with something, and I'd rather him be valeting or managing the Bucks than doing anything else. But it would be very, very interesting to see what they do with this. But I think the only way out of it, to save any face, is to have a Flair face turn at some point.
Yeah,
maybe afterwards or maybe during or whatever. But Flair's doing too much. I'm just thinking about this from like a business perspective as well, sort of on the fly. He's got the woo energy and he's got the woo wings situation going on as well with his chicken wings and stuff. If he's a heel, is it really going to be beneficial for business for what he's trying to do while he's there with the sponsorships and stuff? I don't know. But he's known for being a heel and the dirtiest player in the game, blah, 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 whatever. I think he goes in as a heel, something happens, and he comes out as a face. I think that's the only way to play it, really. If they don't, whatever. I'll be honest with you, it's a little bit... It's Sting's last match. Like, Sting's like one of my favourite fucking wrestlers ever. Like, genuinely one of my favourites ever. He's phenomenal talent. I'm really, really not in on this match as much as I probably should be, knowing it's going to be his last match, his retirement match. I've got some massive, massive go-away heat with the Bucks, so it sort of turned me off to it a little. I'll watch it. I will watch the pay-per-view. We never know. We might do a little watch-along. You never know. But I just think it's a bit... it's a bit meh. Man, I think we said this before. It's a bit meh. So I don't know. What
I
say
think,
you, Shields?
I think,
What say you?
yeah. First of all, going back to Flair, it's like if you haven't seen the segment, it's like he walks past like Renee Paquette, and he goes on about, I would have thought I would have been more heavily involved in this, like leaning Sting's last match. that's a shoot. That ain't no work. That's genuinely what he thinks. It's like fucking that is Ric Flair. He is the man, right?
You go out there
I
and you
agree.
make this about you, okay? You go out there and make this about you.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with you in terms of I'm just not into it. Again, Sting is like Flair in terms of absolute in the conversation for the Mount Rushmore of wrestling, right? In terms of gimmick and in-ring ability, longevity, you name it. Sting is up there in that same conversation, right? For me, anyway. And I think it's very, very sad because if you think of Ric Flair's last match, I'm not talking about shitters like the tag team match, right? I'm talking about everybody thinks Ric Flair's last match, Shawn Michaels, right? Sting doesn't have that moment.
No.
You know? And for me, that's really, really sad for the career of the icon Sting. It's really, really sad. And, maybe the Bucks will surprise us, and maybe they won't go over, but it's still this niggling. I've got this little like fucking young Bucks tumor right here, and it's going, and it's I just think it's. Hopefully we're wrong, and we'll watch the pay-per-view. I think we've got to, as a wrestling fan, we've got to watch Sting's last match, right? It's got to happen.
100%.
And then we'll go from there. But yeah, it's
just going back to Blake's message on TikTok. Like the last thing that we could see in wrestling is, like, in Sting's career, is him taking a BTE trigger.
Vile. Anyway, moving on before we vomit.
BTE, not good.
No, but they're actually calling it the EVP now. It's the EVP trigger.
Please get in the fucking sea. Fuck off.
Yeah. That's a legit. That's not me making that up. They're calling it the EVP trigger. So there you go.
Imagine it.
Anyway, final bit of AEW news before we get back to our list is, again, there is conflicting rumours going about just now that Hangman Adam Page is injured. So conflicting reports is it's either like a work where he's selling like an absolute demon, or he's actually broken his ankle. We've got strong opinions on Hangman Adam Page, right? He doesn't do anything for us. There's no connection there, and that's what wrestling's all about, right? When you buy into a character, there's a connection. I think we can agree he's fairly talented in the ring, but I think he's definitely got something about him. It's just, for me, there is something missing. Is this what Adam Page needs just now in terms of time off TV, maybe a repackage, and then come back and maybe connect a little bit? Thoughts? What say you, Hoxie?
So in the last hour, so we've been recording now for coming up to an hour and 40 minutes, give or take. It'll peek behind the curtain. Within the last hour, Ringside News have actually reported that there is potentially more to this. So this is Brian Alvarez has reported this. Hangman is not hurt. He worked an ankle injury, and the reason that he worked the ankle injury is because he has something going on in his personal life, and he may not be able to work on the pay-per-view. If he can't work the pay-per-view, then this is a cover story as to why he can't work. He injured his ankle. Virtually nobody knew about it, and I don't know if even the people in the match knew what was going on. So there's basically something, there's probably a little bit more to it. So I don't know what the personal issue is or whatever. This is hot off the press. So yeah, another quote. There were people very close to Hangman who even this morning didn't know what was going on. I presume that him and Tony talked about it, but I can't tell you that for sure. The point of the story is he is okay. He may work the pay-per-view. He may not work the pay-per-view. And I don't know if we're going to know whether he's going to work the pay-per-view or not until maybe the last minute. I don't know what the personal issues are, but they are there, and that's what's going on. So there is a bit more to it than that.
That's some Alvarez shit right there, right? It's
That's some
could work the
proper
pay-per-view,
pro
might not.
wrestling. Yeah. It's like he maybe worked the pay-per-view, he might not work the pay-per-view. Like there's lots going on there, right?
Look, like if he's hurt, I don't want to see anybody hurt, and I hope he gets better soon. If there is
but if there is somebody that I want to see get hurt for like just a little injury, then it might be Adam Page. Okay, not a career-threatening, just a little sprained ankle. If there was someone who's going to get a sprained ankle in wrestling,
the views of Hoxie do not reflect the views of Mark Out of 10 podcast.
It's okay for Adam Page, okay, Mr. Vanilla himself.
Yeah, but I mean, we don't want a serious injury, and if there is personal issues, we wish him all the best. Obviously, it's we don't want to hear anybody like suffering in their real life persona, which is absolutely that's legit. That's a shoot.
We don't want any personal issues to get in the way. We don't need bad shit to happen.
Exactly.
A little ankle injury is okay, but I don't want anything really bad to happen
100%.
to anybody. Yeah.
But this goes back to my first point. Is this what he needs? Does he need time away to sort of rebuild his gimmick or rebuild, just rebuild something in order? Like you say, he's Mr. Vanilla.
To go away, he needs to go away and learn a new hold. It's a quote, like time immemorial from wrestling. You need to go away and change something up. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. They will have a huge pop for this guy when he comes back.
Yep.
But he needs to come back as something different, and he needs to. He's again one of those guys, and I've said this before. I'll fucking bang on about this till the cows come home with this guy. He does the same shit in every single match, whether it's on a Dynamite or whether it's on a pay-per-view. I know he had this mental match with Swerve when he's like drinking blood and all this sort of stuff. Like that's just silly. He needs to go away and spend some time and come back. He doesn't need to be he doesn't need to be like the fucking gobbledygooker when he comes back. You know what I mean? It doesn't need to be a different gimmick. He just needs to go away and find something, because there at the minute and for a very, very long time, there has been something missing with Page. And it's ever since he dropped the belt to Punk. I think that got into his head a bit too much. I think the guys who are around him and stuff probably all got affected by that situation. Rather than them being mates and doing the job for each other, they actually had to do something for business for once, and they didn't like it and they didn't know how to deal with it. And I think Page is a massive, massive victim of that. Obviously, the whole reason Punk isn't there anymore is because of this fucking bell end. But anyway, there is something that he needs to do. He needs to go away. Maybe he needs to go to like fucking Kathmandu or whatever and just have a bit of time alone. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
Excellent. And if you've listened to all the news, everybody, I've lost track of what I was going to say there. Yeah, if you've listened and you agreed with us, let us know what you think. If you disagree with us, also let us know what you think. And if you hear of any other news that you want me and Hoxie to discuss, by all means, make sure you email us at wrestlemark10@gmail.com, Mark_out of10 on Twitter, and at Mark_out of10 on all other social. That's Instagram, TikTok, and the old YouTube, Hoxie. But yes, a good news segment this week again. Enjoy the news segments. It's good shit.
It's good. It's good. It's good. Like everybody loves this when it's in terms of wrestling as well. It's like the armchair bookers and stuff, isn't it? You think about stuff, and that's why we like wrestling. We like, oh, what would you do? What would this guy do? Who would you like to see a match with or whatever? Like, how does it work? Like, That's what we love. But it's changing all the time. There's so much stuff. Like I said, it was an hour ago. We'd started recording before that news come in. We were going to have a very different conversation about this if it was an hour ago than it was now. So it's always going on. But yeah, it's I do enjoy the news segments. I think we're becoming more and more fond of them, aren't we, as we go through this little process? Definitely.
But, the news segments are one thing, but Mark Out of 10 is all about the lists. And we're going to head back to our top 10 lists of Intercontinental Champions, the workhorse title, if we will. We've done 10 through 6, and now we're on to my number 5, Hoxie. And my number 5 is someone that you've already mentioned. And you've got to remember, no one is perfect unless your name is Kurt Hennig. Mr. Perfect is my number 5. He's just brilliant, right? It's... before he got his Intercontinental title, the point is he went on a 2-year undefeated streak. And
yes, he did.
2 years of just absolute brilliance. Perfect plex after perfect plex after perfect plex. And as a Scotsman, that's very difficult to say that over and over again. Who was it that defeated Mr. Perfect?
Oh my God, Brutus Beefcake?
When it comes crashing down and it hurts inside.
Wow.
Mr. Perfect lost in a televised match against Hulk Hogan on Saturday night's main event on April 28th. So, yes, there you go.
Of course it was. Of course it was.
There you go.
Brother.
So, yes, it's... So he went on that 2-year run, and then he got the Intercontinental title after beating in an 8-man tournament, because the Ultimate Warrior vacated the Intercontinental title. It was an 8-man tournament, and he beat the former champ Tito Santana in the final. And then he had the title for about 126 days, and then he lost to Texas Tornado at SummerSlam 1990. Who was Texas Tornado?
Jesus.
It was
Texas Tornado was Kerry Von Erich.
It certainly was. And then Perfect...
The one-footed man.
Then Mr. Perfect regained the title again in the 19th of November 1990 against, again, Texas Tornado. And then he held the title for 280 days, which was the single longest reign of the 1990s.
Phenomenal. There we go.
So there you go.
Great stat.
And then obviously, who beat Mr. Perfect?
Mm-hmm.
Bret the Hitman Hart.
Yeah.
So he went SummerSlam 91, and for me, it was probably up there in the top 3 best Intercontinental title matches ever. 2 of the most technically gifted superstars ever. Just fucking phenomenal, man. Now,
I might go back and watch that match. I'm going to make a little note. now. I'm going to watch this match after we've recorded before I go to bed.
Mr. Perfect was... We will eventually do a list of the best guys never to have won it, the big one. And I think he's definitely on the shout for being number 1. You know, no spoilers, but he'll be in that conversation. But he was one that was just, no pun intended, he was the perfect Intercontinental Champion. Just the look, his ability. And that's what you think about Intercontinental title, right? You think about... I mean, I said I've got Ultimate Warrior on my list. But it's about ability in the ring. But, you know, it's like it got to that stage where it was all about ability. And, yeah, Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig was just fucking incredible. So, yeah, awesome.
Yeah. He was on my list.
Yeah.
He made my list. He's one of my favourites as well. He's just great.
It's just the look, right? Like you say, it's the singlet and it's the hair as well. It just... There's something about, like, the permed blonde hair in wrestling. It's just it makes a superstar. It's like you think of Dusty Rhodes, you think of Ric Flair, you think of Mr. Perfect when it comes to wrestling, and I think it's to do with that look. So yes, anyway, moving on to your number 5, Hoxie.
My number 5 is someone who you spoke about earlier on. It's the Ultimate Warrior. The reason he's so, once again, like we've said, we talk about the IC belt as being the workhorse title for those guys who are that mid the card and they have the great matches. They do these 20-minute matches and this, that, and the other. Warrior was superstar.
Yeah.
Top level superstar. Batshit crazy. Nutter. The flame burnt bright and burnt for a very, very short time, but it burnt bright. And it was a great run for the Warrior. He didn't lose the belt as well, so he won it in 27 seconds, and he never actually lost it. He vacated it when he won the belt. When he beat Hogan for the title. So,
bless you,
bless me, thank you. It was. He sort of took that championship.
He's allergic to Warrior.
I'm allergic to
putting Warrior over.
Holy shit! Yeah, it's getting all over me, guys. I'll have to get through this one quick. But he beat obviously Rick Rude for the title at SummerSlam in '89. Rude made him look like $1 million as well. Like Rick Rude is one of the greatest ever, massively underrated and stuff as well with what he did. But it was a great run. He had it for a long time as well. Combined, I think it was like 500 days or something, 550 days, 2-time run with it. And then obviously he vacated the championship, so he never lost it on his second run. So he beat obviously Hogan at WrestleMania and gave the title up. So you can see what happened with here. The reason he's so high on the list is because he took that belt from being that mid-card title. He main evented a WrestleMania against one of the biggest stars of all time, with going head to head with the biggest belt in the promotion, the biggest belt in the world, that WWF title. So, and he won it, and he took both the titles and held them both above his head when he fucking won those belts. So he took that IC belt and just took it to a completely different stratosphere. And I say, when you look at the guy who won it after, you've got the Mr. Perfect, you've got the Bret Harts, you've got the fucking Roddy Pipers over the next couple of years as well. I mean, it sort of takes that belt to a slightly different level, I think, and the Warrior did that just by being a fucking superstar. And I know the WWF made him, and Vince saw the money in him and all that sort of stuff, but you cannot deny that the Warrior wasn't a star. And you had to get it. Had to get on the list for me.
Horseshit in the ring, but an absolute legitimate superstar.
Yeah, and he gets it right. You can say the same about a few people who won belts and who made a name for themselves and who made a lot of money in wrestling. That you don't have to be a fucking Daniel Bryan to make money. You can do it in lots and lots of different ways. So Ultimate Warrior, number 5.
Okay, Hockey, so your Ultimate Warrior is your number 5. Moving on to your number 4.
My number 4 is another person who we've spoken about earlier on, or you've spoken about earlier on, the bad guy, Razor Ramon. I can't really add much to what you said about Razor. We underappreciate with Razor Ramon about sort of like merchandise and how much you said he was like the first cool heel. This guy made all the money, basically, when it come to merchandise and stuff. The T-shirt, the bad guy T-shirt with his face on, and all that sort of stuff. All the kids had it. Those sort of 11 to 18-year-old kids, you know what I mean, in the crowd. You would look at the crowd would pan, and you would see they all had his merch on. The WrestleMania matches, obviously with Michaels, the ladder match for the belt. He was that much of a big deal that when he left, they tried to keep the gimmick going.
Yeah.
They only done that with 2 people. Like there's discussions, and there'll be reason. Oh, they wanted to prove a point to Ted and WCW that it was their people, and they, you know what I mean, they made them, and it was the gimmick that they bought, not the fucking Scott Hall and Kevin Nash. But obviously they were wrong. But they tried to make that much of a big deal out of it. They tried to keep the gimmick going. And it just shows how much of a big deal he was. And when you look at, once again, obviously that 90s period, and wrestling, or the WWF, wasn't necessarily on like a boom period for half of his run. It started picking up, I mean, a little bit sort of into that mid-90s period, but he was one of their featured guys. He was a tippy top guy. He could have quite easily fell into a WWE run and like a title run, and it wouldn't be frowned upon. People wouldn't look back and think, why the fuck did Razor have the title? More people look back on it and think, why the fuck did Razor not have the title? You know what I mean? But he made that Intercontinental Championship his own. Like some great matches, great feuds, great merch, great guy, top talent. And so he had some really cool entrance music as well. But yeah, Razor Ramon, number 4. Hey yo.
So good, very very definitely underrated as well in terms of when you think of superstars. 100%, it's like he was so over. He made so much money, some of the greatest matches ever, but he's still one of the most underrated ever as well.
Which is scary, right?
Yeah,
you think about this guy, and he's talked about in some amazing circles, and genuinely underrated. But yeah, he had to get towards the top of my list just because of, and I fucking loved him when I was a kid as well. That was like really prime when I would start properly watching wrestling live, not like old tapes from like a few years earlier and stuff, what I've spoken about before. When I was watching those live, not necessarily live Raws, but like as it was happening wrestling, Razor Ramon was like one of my favorites. I just loved him. And his gimmick with the razors on his trunks and just all the bright colors, and he just looked cool as fuck coming out, giving it the thing. So much so as I steal it when I come out of the ring to my thing as well. So he had a big lasting influence on me. 100%. Razor Ramon. Love him.
Can't argue with you at all, because he was on my list as well. Okay. Moving on to my number 4. We're going for ooh yeah, dig it. We're going for Randy Savage. Just the character Randy Savage speaks for himself, right? But I think most people think he's probably the Intercontinental Champion. Yeah, him and Miss Elizabeth, he doesn't need to be known with the title at any point. Any of the titles, he's just the character in wrestling. He only won the Intercontinental title once, and he had it for 414 days. Okay, so again, massive. He beat Tito Santana in Boston Garden in 1986, and
one of their big venues as well. Yep. That was one of their big venues.
Huge.
Yep. Sorry,
and no, absolutely fine. And then he was just he was the Intercontinental Champion. He said it himself. The Intercontinental title is he said, the single biggest prize in all of wrestling. So straight away, he is elevating that title. He's pushing it further on. He had so many great feuds. He had it, George the Animal Steel, Bruno Sammartino, and then obviously he even defeated Hulk Hogan when he was Intercontinental Champion, and Hogan was WWF Champion. It was count out, but he still beat Hulk Hogan. So again, that shows the level of superstar we're talking about.
Not many people did that.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, he just kept on going. It was just, everything was just, he was just the pure champion, right? For the 414 days that he had that, he eventually lost it. And again, one of the best matches of all time against Ricky Steamboat. Yeah, WrestleMania 3. It was just incredible. Once he dropped that belt to Ricky Steamboat, he was then ready to go to the WWF title. And I don't know if this is right. So we've talked about Pedro Morales. He was WWF champion, then he went to Intercontinental champion. I think that Randy Savage was the first Intercontinental champion to go to WWF champion. So obviously we've had it the other way about, but I think he was the first person to actually use it as a stepping stone to the big one. So it may not be the longest, it may not be multiple reigns, but I think what Randy Savage did for the Intercontinental title, it had to be on a list of great Intercontinental champions for me anyway. And it's an extra little bit to his legacy as one of the best of all times. And yeah, ooh yeah, dig it. So yeah, my number 4 is the Macho Man Randy Savage.
Are we going to talk about my number 3 now?
It's my number 3.
Is it my? I think we might. Can we just switch it up really quickly?
Yeah.
To talk about my number 3, because it makes perfect sense to do it, because my number 3 is Randy Savage.
Fair enough.
So I can't really add much to what you're saying, if that makes sense, because we just touched on it, but he was the guy that elevated himself by using that title. I know the WWF or the WWE would book these guys, but it was still very much so where you would have to go out and get yourself over and make something of it. And a million % Randy took that opportunity and just went, okay, I'm going to fucking change my life excuse me, I'm going to change my life here right now, and this is what I'm going to do with this belt. And as you say, he was the first guy to elevate himself and use that championship to get to that next level. He made that run. There isn't many other perfect periods of time for wrestlers in their life than what Randy did with that IC belt, and he just made himself. He was a he. You know, we talk about. I say this a lot. We talk about being a made man, and sometimes it takes like a big story, or sometimes it takes the swell of the people to get behind you, or sometimes it takes just something. He made himself. He became a made man with that IC belt run, and it was just beautiful. And as you say, that WrestleMania match, March 29th, 1987, WrestleMania 3, one of the greatest wrestling matches you will ever see in your entire life. What makes it special for me as well, from a wrestler's perspective, I think there's something like 30 odd near falls in the match. So there's like 30 odd pin attempts. So it's a great match, but they're trying to win the match as they go through. And I know that sounds like a really silly thing, but you watch matches nowadays, or some really good matches, and there's probably only a few pin attempts. It was constant. Every 20 seconds there was a pin attempt. It was just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Amazing. Yeah.
I think what's also interesting as well, as you say that nowadays there's not a lot of pin attempts. There was a period in modern day wrestling where there was a shit ton of near fall attempts, but when you watch that match, there's just something different about the near fall attempts, right? It's like you get into it, whereas there was a period in wrestling where it was like, you know, a clothesline, trap in, it's a kick out after one. It just wasn't the same for that match. That match is one of the best things you can ever watch in wrestling. So again, if you haven't seen it, please, dear God, go and watch it. It's fucking incredible.
Yeah. I will be massively surprised if the people who listen to this podcast haven't watched this match. But if you're maybe, and this is not, no offense is meant by this, but maybe if you're a younger listener to the show, or maybe you're, you know what I mean, not necessarily a student of the game or a historian when it comes to wrestling, you get that network, or try and find this out. It's 14 minutes and fucking 14 and a half minutes or whatever of just chef's kiss. Go out your way. And then obviously you've got the Hogan and Andre a couple of matches after, but watch that one first and then watch Hogan and Andre. That's the only thing you need to watch on that fucking on that WrestleMania, to be fair, 2 matches. But Steamboat and Randy Savage, beautiful.
So good.
Beautiful.
Okay, well, I'll flick back over to my number 3 then, and then we can go over to do your... No, it's absolutely fine. It makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, my number 3 is a guy that you've mentioned before. It's The Miz. I'm a massive Miz fan. I think, again, we've talked about it, massively underrated. One of the safest hands. And I mean, if we go at a time where, you know, everybody says, oh, Vince McMahon sort of wet dream is the big bodybuilder. That's not what Miz was. You know, Miz was that fucking, like, chicken shit, cocky little heel fucker that you just want to kick fuck out of, right? And
smug
little prick.
Yeah.
You know, and the fact that
prick.
And he's married to Maurice as well, which doesn't fucking help. It's like, what are you doing? But yeah, no, so he lost his WWE Championship in 2011. He then won his first Intercontinental title. You've talked about this in 2012. And it was solid, but then his second, third, and fourth reigns were very, very short, and everybody thought, "Fuck, right, this could be a nightmare." I think it was like a couple of them were like a day or something, 2 days. Another one was like 24 days, so not even a month. And then he won his 5th title and just cemented himself as one of the best ever in 2016, I think it was. You know, you've talked about it. He's fought some of the best in the business. The talking smack segment is one of the best things that WWE have put on their TV. It's real, you know. And if you listen to Miz speak, like in interviews, etc., afterwards, it was real because he felt genuinely disrespected. And you know, you say all the time, you know, real life, you know, it works. So as you said, 8-time Intercontinental Championship reigns. which is the second most reigns in Intercontinental title history. 592 days combined, I think it is. So again, he's third in the list now. Easily the best Intercontinental champion of the period, like 2010 to 2020, in that period of time. Easily the best.
Modern era.
100%. And, you know, he made the title mean something. I said the same with Cody Rhodes. You know, he elevated the title and then it died off again. And then The Miz did exactly the same. He brought it up, he elevated it, and he truly was like an impeccable Intercontinental champion. Just different class. I'm a huge fan of The Miz. One of the safest hands you'll get in the ring, and he makes you believe. He makes you feel something. If it's fucking hatred for him, he's doing his job, right? He's doing his job.
Yes. Exactly. He's obviously a great salesman as well, because he managed to pull Maurice. So, yeah. 10 out of 10 for effort on that one.
GG. GG, mate.
Old Mickey Miz in, or whatever you want to say it. Fair play to him.
Legend.
Yep. 10-10.
Okay, Hoxie, so it's over to you for your number 2 then, I believe.
My number 2, this might come as a surprise to somebody, to some people listening, but it shouldn't do, is Gunther. Is for me the second greatest Intercontinental champion of all time. His run is obviously longest reigning IC champion now in history. He's had it one time, and he's held it for 622 days and counting. He's had, I don't know, we shit on this sometimes, but he's had the most 5-star IC championship matches in its history. Mm-hmm. Every single match he has is fucking incredible. He hasn't had a bad match with anybody at any point in any match that he's been attached to the WWE. That triple threat one he had at Mania with Drew and Sheamus. The Clash at the Castle match he had with Sheamus, where they just beat fuck out of each other for 15, 20 minutes.
I'm going to cut you off here. He's my number 2 as well, by the way, so we can fucking...
There we go. We're just going to chat about it. Yeah. There we go. That's amazing. I honestly didn't think... I thought he might be your honourable mention. I didn't think he would make the list. I thought he might be your honourable mention.
He was mine.
Okay.
He's been between my number 1 and number 2 all day.
Yeah. He's been struggling with it.
Yeah.
Trying to get back and forward with it. Yeah.
Yes, sorry to interrupt you.
He's brought back... No. He's brought back the prestige with the IC belt. Obviously, they changed the design and they sort of brought it into that new era. It's been a little bit like, okay, like, I mean, obviously AJ Styles had it, fucking like Sami Zayn and all that sort of stuff, but he's been the first guy to really take that belt and just fucking like blast through everybody. Loads of defenses, loads of top quality matches. The shit he's had with his little, obviously, you know, with the two guys with him. The Ring General, like his introductions, and yeah, exactly. Like he's sort of made not necessarily a gimmick with it, you know what I mean? But he's made that that sort of, he's got that heat with it as well. The way he looks. The way he's changed his look, like he looks fucking phenomenal now. We talk about those, the IC belt is like the stepping stone, that shoot to the moon title. If he comes out the other side of this and he isn't in the main event, I'll be gutted.
Devastated.
But B, I'll be shocked as well, because I think he's guaranteed himself, and he's put himself into that made man level with this run. You don't get to be this long of a champion. No. We're in that age now. Like, you look at obviously what's going on with Roman. That's like a once in a generation thing. The same with this IC belt. It's a once in a lifetime, a once in a history thing, because he's the longest reigning champion at one time. So it's a massive thing. and I'm fucking so happy for him. I couldn't be any happier for this guy. And his name is now in the annals of time. His name is in the history books as the longest reigning champion of all time, and it has to be towards the top of the list. Someone's beat him for me, just obviously, which we will discuss. But Gunther is just fucking incredible. I can't wait to see what happens with him. Go on,
mine's has been flicking all day. So I've had my list pretty much sorted for the entire week, right? So I knew who was on my list, but 1 and 2 have been interchanging. And Der Ring General Gunther he's just so good. I've said it in previous podcasts, it's all about the hard-hitting big bastards, right? And he is the quintessential big bastard, hard-hitting. The chops that fucker is like, and it's such a simple moveset he does, you know? And this just proves the point, right? It's a case of, it's not about how many flips you can do, it's about how you get simple moves over. And a simple chop, or a simple big boot, or a clothesline, or a lariat, sorry. You know, he's just phenomenal. The series, so I agree with you, Sheamus and Drew McIntyre match was fucking great, but the series of matches he had with Chad Gable, fucking thing of beauty, man. Just so good. If you haven't seen them, watch on the network. That, and you said something as well, he like goes over people, like he just fucking runs right through them, but not in a negative way. He puts them over at the same time. Because you can run through people but still make your opponents look strong. And he made Chad Gable look like a fucking $1 million, man. And I agree with you. He is using this as a stepping stone. And for me, he is a world heavyweight champion, not a WWE Universal champion. He's just got that look. And I think you talked about the belt, how like the white leather belt's the best one is better than the one he's got just now, which is absolutely fine. But I think we spoke about this recently, I think that the new Intercontinental title belt suits him, suits his character. I'm
going to have a quick look. Just want to get it. Want to get my eyes around it. Reacquaint myself with the image.
We'll be right back.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. Right? You carry on chatting. Yeah, you carry on.
So yeah, it's just phenomenal. I think, as you say, is in the annals of time. You're not going to get that in WWE unless you're a superstar, and he is a superstar. And I was worried when he lost all that weight, whether he would have the same sort of impact, but he's just worked with it, right? And he does look phenomenal, and he hasn't lost a step, really. And yeah, fucking brilliant.
I'm not sold on this belt.
No?
I'm not sold on it. No. I can see why, because it's very toy-like. So it's one of those things where they're going to sell a lot of merch for it. It's very toy-like for me. I just, man, when you look at that the white one, I've just typed in Intercontinental Championship, and it's the first options that come to. You've got the one which was sort of in the 90s with like the blue bit on it, which is like a little bit of a wider globe. And then you've got that white one with more of like the square panels. And it's just, with the white leather in comparison to the new one, the new one looks like a toy, and that looks like a proper belt. I'm such a belt mark. I love a proper belt. I don't like any of the new titles. I would bring back the big gold, man, or the winged eagle, or the fucking globe. These new belts, they just...
Tell you something, there's a future top 10 list right there. But I don't know, I still maintain, again, if I can, I'll put pictures of the new belt with like Gunther on it. I think it suits Gunther. I don't know if he would suit like the white belt one, or like the smaller one that you're talking about there. I just don't know. I just think...
I can see what you're saying. When I see it around his waist, I can see what you're saying, because it looks like a fighter's belt.
Yeah.
Like a modern day fighter's belt. I can kind of see what you're saying. I get you.
But I agree with you. The white belt for me is the Intercontinental Championship, right? It is. It's just fucking... Yeah. Thing of you. I'll put pictures on. It's probably been in between mine and Hoxie's head, so it's fine. Cool. So yes, number 2 for each of us is the Ring General Gunther. Over to honourable mentions now. I believe... fuck knows, I've lost it. I think it's me that is.
You go first.
Yeah. My honourable mention... Oh, yeah, because you... Yeah. you said that you've got a good one. So your honourable mention, my honourable mention, is someone you've already mentioned, and it's Pat Patterson. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. Like, I just think he had to be on the list somewhere, and for the inaugural champion, it had to start somewhere. I think the people I've mentioned on the list have. That sounds really harsh. Like, have had more impact or have meant more to me, but I think Pat Patterson is a fitting addition to any list. He's one of the best ever. And in terms of anything he did, like you say, he was one of the best faces, one of the best heels. It's like best tag teams, best Intercontinental Champions, the first ever. Like you say, the whether or not the South American Heavyweight Championship tournament actually existed, we'll never know. But it was such a great thing, and yeah, he had to be.
It's a great story, isn't it?
It's a WWF story, right? So yeah. I won't go into much more detail, but Pat Patterson for me is my honourable mention. Okay, Hoxie.
Cool.
Honourable mention for you. Now, a peek behind the curtain. Hoxie did say before we started, his honourable mention is going to be a chic moment. Okay, so we've had a shaky moment before, so here we go. Sit back, relax.
Whether I've built this up too much, I don't know, but we're just about to find out. So, every single person on our list so far has been the WWF or WWE or NWA Intercontinental Champion, okay? There is another Intercontinental Championship in the world of wrestling, and that is part of the New Japan Pro Wrestling promotion. So my honorable mention is for one of the greatest IWGP Intercontinental Champions of all time, and that's Tetsuya Naito.
Take it away.
So Tetsuya Naito is one of the greatest Japanese wrestlers of all time, one of the biggest stars in New Japan, multiple time champion, multiple time Intercontinental multiple time Intercontinental champion. He's also the big belt champion as well, so the IWGP heavyweight champion, junior heavyweight tag team champion, IWGP tag team champion, never openweight champion. He's won the Climax 3 times, all that sort of stuff. But obviously, we're talking about the Intercontinental Championship now. Okay, he is a 6-time, so he's held it for the most amount of times. Now, I know people say like, "Oh, if you've held it that amount of times, you've lost it X amount of times or whatever." He's the second all-time combined days for the title as well. What the reason that he beat the top guy to this, and we're not going to talk about the top guy. The reason he beat the top guy to this for me is the fact that he actually done a warrior. He took the IWGP Intercontinental Championship and had a match against Evil, who was the IWGP Heavyweight Champion at the time, and he won both belts. So in 2020, August 2020, at what basically one of the shows they did, he basically took both belts away from that pay-per-view from that event. He had this amazing thing when he had the belt where he sort of he was like disrespectful of it. He would just like drag it along the floor behind him, and he'd like walk to the ring and just fucking launch it across into the ring and like across the rope and stuff from the outside, and it was all battered and the fucking plate was hanging off the lever and all this sort of stuff. Like he was sort of playing on real life shit because he thought in real life that he should be the big belt. That was when Okada had it. He thought he should be the big guy. And they gave him that belt to sort of placate him and keep him happy and all this sort of stuff. And he sort of disrespected it, but was kind of respectful for it at the same time. He had some phenomenal matches. He beat Chris Jericho for the belt when Jericho had it. So he lost it to Jericho, and then he lost it to Jericho at Dominion, at Sacagawea Hall as well, which is like one of the most famous wrestling venues in the world. And then he had the return match at Wrestle Kingdom 13 at the Tokyo Dome, and beat Chris Jericho for it. Lost it to Ibushi, then fucking won it again. Lost it to Jay White, then won it again. lost it, won it, all this sort of stuff. So it was back and forward, back and forward, back and forward. But they were big time matches, like high end, big time matches. When you're wrestling Jericho at a Wrestle Kingdom, when Jericho had that little run, that's a big fucking deal. And it was for the Intercontinental Championship. So when we were talking about IC belts, I knew I had to try and weave this in. The guy who is the most amount of combined days just dropped off my list. Just dropped off my list in order to get to my 10. But yeah, I thought, you know what? I'm not being clever or being like snidey about it or anything, but we are talking about Intercontinental Championships. We're not talking about the Intercontinental Championship. So Naito is my honorable mention. If you don't know Naito, go out and find some of his shit and go and watch it. The Los Ingobernables de Japón or whatever faction that he sort of ran with and the quote-unquote leader or whatever. Just look at some of the guys who he's got surrounding him. Look at some of the matches he's had. Fucking incredible. Incredible. Yeah.
We didn't say it was WWE Intercontinental Champions, Hoxie.
Exactly.
Love it.
Exactly.
Okie dokie.
Snuck in.
So, ladies and gentlemen, what we are doing now, before we reveal our number 1, we will do a quick run through of our top 10. My number 10 was the Honky Tonk Man. My number 9 was Ultimate Warrior. 8 was Pedro Morales. 7 was Razor Ramon, the bad guy. Number 6, Cody Rhodes. I know, I feel dirty. Number 5 was Mr. Perfect. 4 was Randy Savage. 3 was The Miz. 2 was Gunther. My honourable mention is Pat Patterson, the first ever Intercontinental Champion. Over to you, Hoxie.
My number 10 is Pat Patterson. My number 9 was Tito Santana. Number 8 was Mr. Perfect. Number 7, Pedro Morales. Easy for me to say. Number 6, The Miz. Number 5, Ultimate Warrior. Number 4, Razor Ramon. Number 3, Randy Savage. Number 2, Gunther. And my honourable mention goes to Tetsuya Naito.
Excellent list so far. And Hoxie, it is your number 1 for top 10 Intercontinental Champions is...
Chris Jericho.
Same here.
No fucking way.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, no, it is
No
Jericho.
way.
Like I say, him and
amazing.
Gunther, my 1 and 2. Swapping all day. But yeah, on you go.
Yeah.
Let's talk about him.
9-time Intercontinental Champion. He is Mr. IC, isn't he? I know, like, we talk about the combined days and all this, that, and the other, but number of reigns is really important. He was the guy in a time of lots of guys who had this belt and used this belt and elevated people around him, like had matches, really, really, really great matches with whoever he would feud with. Amazing feuds with guys like Rey Mysterio, amazing feuds with like fucking hell, like China,
Kurt Angle, Benoit, Regal, Triple H,
Regal,
Kane, Rob Van Dam, Christian, Shelton Benjamin, Jeff Hardy, Kofi Kingston, Rey Mysterio. Mental.
Who's who, right?
Unreal.
You look at that list and how many of those are Hall of Famers already and how many of those are going to be Hall of Famers if they're not already. Like, it's just a joke. It's a joke. That was the time in WWE where there was 80% of the card could have been the guy.
Yeah.
You mean like, or a player, like an A guy. And he was in the mix doing lots and lots of different stuff with lots and lots of different people. One of my favorite feuds is the Mysterio feud. There was a match that they had where Mysterio went for the 619 and he took the mask off him halfway through the 619, covered his face, rolled him up for the pin. Just amazing finishes. He's one of the greatest ever. I know we've spoke about this before. He's really, really tarnishing his legacy at the minute. Obviously, there's a lot going on, but we're sticking to the wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
We stick to the wrestling here as much as we can. I know we talk about news and stuff. We really do stick to the wrestling when we're talking about the lists or whatever. If what comes out is true, we might have a very different conversation about him, or he might have a bit of a change or whatever. But when you look at that IC belt, it has to go to him. It has to go there. No one comes close. No one comes close to him. I think that the first person he beat for the title was China, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I'm sure he beat China. So yeah,
Armageddon, 1999.
1999. There we go. Was that her? No, it wasn't.
No.
Sorry, no, it wasn't. He beat everyone. Like you say, you've mentioned all those names, and it's just top level matches as well. Like I see, you got mask versus title matches. We had the three-way match. There was one where he had, I can't remember whether it was the IC belt or the European Championship, but it was a three-way at WrestleMania. It was Benoit, Angle, and Jericho. And Kurt Angle went in there with both belts, and it was a 2 out of 3 falls, one for the European and one for the IC. And I think Jericho won the IC and Benoit won the European or whatever, like in the one match.
Kurt.
Like I always remember it. Just poor Kurt. But I always remember that match. Like I haven't watched it in fucking so long, but I always remember it. Like these real good feuds. I am the best in the world at what I do. You know what I mean? Just like all these changes that he went through with those gimmicks. In '99 when he won it, he'd have the fucking long hair and the cockatoo. You know what I mean? Like, and then probably the last time he won it, he would have been in a suit and short trunks and stuff. So he changed and he went through that process. And the belt followed him all the way through as well. And mate, 9-time champ. What the fuck? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Crazy, right?
I mean, it was really fitting.
What have I missed?
No, nothing. No, I mean, I can't really disagree with anything you said. It's exactly the same there. I mean, it was very fitting that Y2J was the man that brought the Intercontinental title into the millennium, right? It's like, so he won it in 99, taken into 2000s, and basically just didn't stop from there. So the noughties were sort of his era for Intercontinental title. I mean, you know, he had that, but even co-held the Intercontinental title with China. Right? It's like,
oh my god, yes!
It's like,
yes.
It's when you think of different things of Intercontinental title. Jericho's done it all. You know, it's like he again, like you say, what he's doing with his career just now. It's totally up to him how he wants to go out. That's fine.
Yeah,
it does. As a fan of him, it does sort of sully you to him a little bit. But when you think back to some of the feuds, like you say, him and Benoit are always one of the greatest feuds. I just think it's so good. Then you've got the athleticism of him versus like RVD, obviously going back to like ECW type days, and you know, it's just like Shelton Benjamin as well, Jeff Hardy, ladder matches and stuff. It's just, he's just different class in that particular era. And you know, again, we talk about stepping stone. He used that as a stepping stone again, 9-time champ, but he still used it to get over and into the sort of the main event, if you will. But yeah, nine-time Intercontinental champion, and a list of, and we've had a lot of great Intercontinental champions. Yeah, he had to be the tippity top of that list. There was just, I say there's no question. There was a question. I think what Gunther's doing just now is phenomenal. And the longest reigning had to be there. And like you say, it comes down to, is it longest reigning or is it most reigns? And it was chop and change before. But yeah, Jericho just pipped him at the post for me.
Yeah. Jericho was, at one point, for a long period of time, and you know this, Jericho was my favourite wrestler of all time. And it's more to do with this period of time when I was like all in on that. He won his first title in 1999. He said it was Armageddon 99. The last championship he had was 2008. So it was nearly a 10-year period of time. No, sorry. Scrap that. It was 2009. It was June 2009 was the last one he won. So it was basically a decade in that mix of being an IC champion. And in between that, he beat The Rock and Stone Cold in one night to become the undisputed champion, and he headlined WrestleManias, and he matches against Shawn Michaels, and he was a guy. He was a made guy. one of the greatest ever. Won everything there is to win. Went away and done whatever he needed to do, and yeah, has. People might argue against this and say, well, oh, what about such and such, or what about fucking hell? We've got like The Rock, who was an IC champion, and that made him as well. It made his career. So you could argue the fact against, like, oh, well, The Rock became the biggest star in wrestling, or one of the biggest stars in wrestling ever, and he used it. It's like, we can justify everything. You can justify anything you want. It's your opinion. Opinions matter and don't matter at the same time, right? But you have to put Jericho in there. You have to.
I mean, you talk about who've missed off the list. Shawn Michaels.
Yes.
Bret Hart.
Shawn Michaels was very, very close. Bret Hart was very, very close.
Triple H.
They're great wrestlers.
Yep.
They're some of the greatest wrestlers all the time, but they might not necessarily be some of the great IC champions of all time.
You know, it's...
Fucking hell, Zack Ryder. Dolph Ziggler.
Dolph
Ziggler's
fucking...
a real miss on this list as well. The other guy for the honourable mention, so the conversation I was having earlier on, I'm not trying to get names in or anything, but this is just discussions and people think, what the fuck? Shinsuke Nakamura is the longest reigning ICW champion when it comes to New Japan Pro Wrestling. He won it 5 times, and it was a total combined reign of like 900 days or whatever. But he also went to the WWE and has had some amazing reigns as IC champion as well. He's, what, 2 times?
2, yeah.
IC champion. And he had them for a long time as well. So you look at those combined and you think, well, what the fucking hell is he not on that list or whatever? I tell you why he's not on that list. Because it's my fucking list, okay? But it's one of those things. There's discussions, right? There's discussions. If you want to come on in here and argue, drop a message in the YouTube, drop a message on the fucking on the TikTok, drop a message wherever. Drop me a message, drop Shields a message, Twitter, Mark_out of 10. Email us, whatever you want to do. It's all about the discussion. I think this list will prompt a lot of discussion.
Yeah.
Because of some of the names who might not be on there, but some of the names who might be on there as well. I think people might think, hold on a minute. But if you do, if you disagree, get involved. If you agree, let us know. It's always nice to get some affirmation, isn't it?
Absolutely. That's what it's all about. You know, it's an opinion-based podcast. That's what we're here to do. And opinions mean everything and nothing at the same time, as we always say. As Hoxie says, let us know what your list... Let us know what your list is. Do you agree? Do you disagree? We want to know what your list is. We want to start hearing you. A lot of the time it's happening on YouTube, which is fantastic. Email us, DM us on Instagram. Make sure you comment on our TikToks as well. We do put them out daily, especially Monday through Friday. Might not be at the weekend because, you know, I've got a wife and she'll kick my ass. So
a wife and a life.
Wife and a life, yeah.
We don't do this full time.
We don't.
We've got IRL shit. We're all busy.
You know, and I like to think we're putting decent content out there. We do want it to get better. Also, if you don't want to give us your list, that's fine, but just comment. Do you think our stuff is decent? Where would you like to see us improve? What sort of content do you want to see Mark Out of 10 do? Do you want us to do watch-alongs on certain platforms? Do you want us to do more news-based stuff? Do you want more than one podcast a week where it's not just a list, but we could do a second podcast? Do you want us to review certain things like a Raw, a Dynamite? You let us know. Mark_out of 10 on Twitter, wrestlemark10@gmail.com, and at Mark Out of 10. As I said before, make sure you like all the podcasts, give it 5-star ratings, and share it with a friend, because Hoxie, he'll hunt you down if you don't help us improve the algorithm. Am I right, Hoxie?
I will hunt you down. Exactly.
Hunt you down,
also,
kick your ass.
Real quick mention as well, streamaware.co.uk. If you want some Mark Out of 10 merchandise, get involved. We've got hoodie on there. Do me a favour, John, and say hoodie for me, please. Because I think it sounds amazing when you use hoodie. It sounds amazing. But I've said this before, the first 5 people who order a hoodie, if you leave your phone number, your contact information, I will personally give you a call. Thank you for the purchase, and we can have a bit of a chat about wrestling or whatever you guys want to chat about. But streamaware.co.uk, all the information will be in descriptions and shared on Twitters and all that sort of stuff. So get involved. Mark_out of 10. Get your own merch. Let's get involved.
Also, what I want to do as well is a shout out to any active wrestlers just now. So obviously we know Hoxie wrestles in a promotion, but we're here to advertise promotions as well. get in contact with us. We can maybe do shout outs if you've got shows coming up. We want to do interviews with independent wrestlers within the UK as well. So if you're interested in doing stuff like that, please email us at wrestlemark10@gmail.com as well. We can talk through how we want to do that in the future. It's some stuff that we do have planned. Okay.
We've got some interesting stuff going forward about our a little bit of a surprise for some wrestling sponsorships. Maybe it's probably the easiest way to explain it.
Really
exciting.
That's
going on at the moment, so that'll be really, really fun. So we'll see.
We alluded to that a couple of weeks ago, but there is stuff happening in the background. We are very much still a growing podcast, but we're going in the right direction. But
baby steps.
It comes to next week, though, Hoxie. We have decided what we're going to do next week.
I cannot wait. I cannot wait.
Our top 10 list. Do you want to reveal what's happening next week, Hoxie?
You do it. Build it up, mate. I'll do a little drum roll.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have talked about, in every single podcast that we have done so far, we've talked about generational superstars. We've talked about eras gone by. But what about to the future? Next week, we are going to talk about the top 10 future talents in wrestling. We're going to discuss the rising stars and the current talents in the wrestling industry who have the potential to make a significant impact in the coming years. So you want to stay tuned for that. Make sure you follow the podcast. Top 10 future prospects, Hoxie. Really exciting.
I can't fucking wait for this. The future is now. It's going to be brilliant. I'm so excited for this one. Very, very excited.
It's going to be a good one.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you to...
This one's been really fun though, mate. This one's been really good. I've enjoyed this.
I went really data and stats heavy this week. I've really enjoyed doing shit like that. So
you had lots of names and lots of numbers and stuff. Yeah, definitely. I think it helps when we look at when we look at this type of list, because it's not necessarily like how things make you feel. It is how things make you feel, but there is statistics that you can put towards this and be like, do you know what, that matches with that, I'm going to go for that. So yeah, that's good.
Love it.
But not for the future, mate. They haven't made their stats
absolutely
yet.
It's going to be shit, right? It's going to be just pure opinion based, Hoxie. For all those that have came all the way to the end of the podcast, thank you so much for listening. Hope you have a fantastic week, and I will catch you again next time. From Shields, goodbye.
Cheers, guys. I've enjoyed it, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Have a great week, and we'll see you later. Love you. Bye.